Sombreros, zapatos, botellas, ropa usada que vendan. Sombreros, zapatos, ropa usada que vendan.
Mercaran chiquilotitos bis. Mercaran chiquilotitos bis.
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 111 of Floating Through Film. This week we are continuing our Buñuel series with two of his most religious movies, Nazarin and The Milky Way. But let me introduce my co-hosts here first, Blake.
What's up?
And Luke.
Hello.
So I guess before we start, what can you see why I picked these two movies?
Religious road movies.
You can guess that's a theme this week.
Yeah.
It's Buñuel and Religion. I think I even mentioned that last week.
Yeah.
So, but it should be pretty obvious now that you guys have seen the movies.
Yeah.
But do you see? Let me just ask you, what are your general thoughts going into this? I'll start with you, Luke.
Like, just on like the two movies.
Yeah, the
in
two
general.
movies. Do you see similarities or differences? More?
Well, I noticed they're both like road movies, which I guess is like also was like the case last week.
Yes.
He just likes
you noticed
doing
it,
those.
yes. He really likes that format.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, I'm interested to hear his thoughts on religion because it's like it can be kind of hard to tell what he thinks a lot of the time. At least for me.
Yes.
Because he's very like I could see it being either way, like him being religious or not religious. Because he's very honest about like the religious like experience, especially with these like, especially with Nazarin. Like, you know, he's not like sugarcoating anything. Like, it's very like,
Yes.
matter of fact. Like, he's very honest about like the bad parts of like being a priest, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, especially because like you can still see like his surrealist elements in a way in both of them.
Yeah.
Nazarin less so, but
Especially
like,
Milky Way. Huh?
but Milky Way especially, which is interesting.
Well, you, Blake, anything that stands out with both of these?
No, yeah. Well, so Nazarin, it feels super pessimistic, which that's at least a difference between the two movies. The Milky Way also has like a pessimistic tone. I feel like, especially towards priests, which I'm sure we'll get into. But it at least is a very funny movie. Like he's like kind of paralleling Jesus's life with beggars' lives, which is, I mean, it's an apt parallel at the end of the day. I mean, that's also what Nazarin's about. Also, is like the priest is basically a beggar, but Nazarin's just kind of like hard to watch at some points because like I also don't know how he feels or like how I'm supposed to feel watching this, because at some points it's like it's like our priest feels like a really great priest. Like this would be a priest that I would that all should like strive to be. But in some other points you're just like, is he just doing this because it makes him feel good?
Yeah,
basically.
Like, I mean, you could probably make the comparison between it and Diary of the Country Priest, I presume.
Yes.
Like the
no, I was actually
facing the realities of the world,
sorry,
kind of
like,
way. Yeah, but like that aspect especially is like, it's why I don't love it on my first watch. Like I definitely like. I think rewatching it on my like, it was just like a tough. It was tough.
We'll get to the movie specifically, maybe a little bit.
Like, and yeah, maybe talking through it too.
Okay,
but it's just like it was a lot first watch. That's all.
I do like how rational the priest is in Nazarene, at least at the very beginning, and it's kind of like a journey as he gets like less rational throughout, almost, or as maybe his situation requires him to be less rational. But he does start out as a very rational person. Like he's the one saying like God and science are basically the same thing, which. I mean, if you're a priest trying to save lives via, like, kind of like a doctor, that's something you'd have to say is like God's the same as science, to get the more like folk religions and like stuff like that you find in the countryside to like actually let you like believe in you and stuff like that. Yes. But at the same time, it's also like those folk the common people that he runs into that are super religious are also the most interesting part of the movie.
Yes.
Because it's how they treat him and how they see him that makes it more interesting than like normal ones, honestly. But.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Honestly, you could say probably a little bit that with both movies, even in the Milky Way too.
Yeah.
But I mean, let me get in. Well, let's get started with the topic with Buñuel and Religion, and we'll kind of go from there. Because we'll definitely touch on all the things you guys said. But so let me start with a quote really quick that Buñuel once said. He said, "quote I believe one must search for God in man," which to me is like the perfect kind of quote to summarize both these movies and kind of just Buñuel's approach in general. Like, because you kind of said it, you kind of find it confusing whether or not like if he's pro or anti or whatever, which is exactly what he's going for. Yeah. But like, just to give some background, like. Apparently, he said he grew up. He grew up, and I think you can kind of see this in his movies. He grew up really Catholic. Okay. Like he grew up with the Jesuits and stuff. His mom was really religious and stuff. But he said like during his teenage years, he first read *Origin of Species*, and then like a little older, like Freud and stuff, and that's when he like became an atheist. And he said like he goes on to say like. He first started doubting Christianity because he started out doubting about hell, like as a punishment and stuff. But I think that's really interesting because I think you can see throughout all of his movies that stays with him. That kind of like you can tell he had a religious background, especially with the Milky Way. We'll definitely see it in some of these later movies. But even in the Milky Way, like this kind of idea of like Catholic guilt and just like. This Catholic kind of background, you can tell he's very well versed.
Especially
in,
like
obviously.
one of the most memorable scenes in Phantom of Liberty involves like, I guess they're more like, the Cardinals, I think, in the hotel den. I mean, we're gonna get to it eventually, like a week or two. But when and then like there's that one couple.
Yeah.
It's a very memorable scene. But yeah, it's definitely there because I think there's also a priest in Discreet Charm, right?
Yes. Yes, there's a no. I
There's a priest that's also a farmer.
Oh yeah, the gardener.
I want to mention that especially
because he feels a lot like the priest in this one, honestly, or a Nazarene. Honestly.
Nazarene, yes.
And honestly, the priest in the Milky Way too a little bit.
No,
like these
the
ones
priest
that
in Milky Way. I don't think he wears a disguise, but you mentioned the disguise from this one. He's basically like a dual kind of like he's like a dual priest gardener in Discreet Charm.
Yes,
and that's like a theme in Buñuel too. Like this idea of like what is a priest? Like, is it someone who just wears the clothes of a priest, or is it something else? Yeah, I think you can see like that's kind of like Buñuel's whole tension of like, and like that's like Buñuel's whole tension of what is religion in the first place is even possible. Okay. And that's kind of why I picked religion this week in terms of like what does Buñuel mean by religion? Like what does it mean to him? So like the guy Max Ob, he basically asked him, do you think man himself is responsible for good and evil? And Buñuel says, I've already told you that the God created by man is the spirit of evil. And I think that's like when you see Buñuel critical of God or religion, that's basically what he's critical of. Kind of this idea of basically God created by man. Some people might say that's all religion in general. I see. But I think Buñuel actually sees a difference between the God created by man and religion, if that even makes sense in a way. You know, maybe like kind of like maybe trying to live rightly, whatever that means, opposed to just living dogmatically. Yeah. Because Buñuel says this he says this in a few different times like throughout his life, because and so it's like kind of important to him. But there's this idea, like I know you've heard of Leibniz before, right? The kind of philosopher mathematician. But he was known for popularizing this idea of like we live in the best possible world. Yeah. And like that's obviously has like a religious idea to it, right? Like no matter what, we should thank God because we live in the best possible world.
Like this is the only universe.
Yes.
So
yes.
Like it's,
yes. But let me read a couple of quotes to kind of give you Buñuel's almost opposite idea of that. So first is quote, "That is the ultimate meaning of all my films, to say time and time again, in case someone forgets or believes otherwise, that we do not live in the best of all possible worlds. I don't know what more I can do." And to read a different one, a slightly different one, quote, "We do not live in the best of all possible worlds. I would like to continue to make films which, apart from entertaining the audience, convey to people the absolute certainty of this idea. In making such films, I believe that my intentions would be highly constructive. Today's movies, including the so-called neo-realistic, do not make it clear that we do not live in the best of all possible worlds. How is it possible to hope for an improvement in the audiences, and consequently in the producers, when consistently we are told in these films, including even the most insipid comedies, that our social institutions, our concepts of country, religion, love, etc., are, while perhaps imperfect, unique and necessary? The true opium of the audience is conformity. And to me, that's when Buñuel's attacking religion, especially in both of these movies.
Yeah.
That's what he's attacking. It's like
Systematic religion.
systematic religion, basically that idea of conformity. The same thing as you can see, we'll see in these later movies. He will also attack ideas of love. He'll attack ideas of country, and in these two films, he's attacking ideas of religion. But to him, they're very similar in terms of he's not actually attacking like just like every action that occurs because of those, but he's attacking basic dogma, like people believe them blindly, you know, or conformity, as he says. Because I think I mentioned it last week, and I've kind of mentioned like Buñuel's whole idea is like what drives his movies is mystery, or another word for that would be doubt and ambiguity. That's kind of what he aims for. Is like that's what he sees in life. Is so that's another reason he really hates religion, right? Is that idea of like we know what God is. We live in the best possible world, you know. But this idea that makes us so sure of ourselves, you know, in religion. When he wants, which is why he's also very drawn to religion, I think, is because he sees that aspect of religion too that also emphasizes the mysterious, the unknown, as well. It's like you can see in Christianity, like, and even Jesus with himself, like that idea. These two almost like polar opposites within religion itself. And you can kind of get whatever you want out of it, but because I wanted to read two quotes, kind of like it's like that the book with the conversations I've been reading. It's like it goes over like multiple years and stuff, but it's funny because he talks about Nazarin at one part of it, and then later on he talks about the Milky Way. He mentions them very similarly in terms of like how he sees the movies. So let me first read how he talks about Nazarin. So first Maxop says, quote, "It's the big problem of our time. Nazarin could also be a modern-day communist. That explains the universal relevance of the 1960s of your film. It's a cinematic expression of confusion of the present day." And then Buñuel answer says, "That's good. Doubt and insecurity are good things." And then they later on go on to talk about the Milky Way. And Buñuel says, quote, "The world is at a moment of tremendous confusion. We don't know where we're going. The truth is out of reach. I don't believe in it anyway. I don't believe that the truth lies in any one place. Personally and intellectually, I'm bothered by people who have found the truth, found it in some doctrine or some social group. And the Milky Way, since I'm the same person, is ambiguous. At heart, I think you see clearly that I haven't changed, but there are aspects of the film that will make people angry or dismissive. These people that see me as anti, and they'll say, why is he making film on that disgusting subject? That may drive some people away, even from among my friends. I don't think I've changed. I believe the ambiguity of the film is the ambiguity of our era. It's something I didn't even set out to do." Yeah. So basically he's saying our world is very mysterious, ambiguous, doubtful in a way. Yeah. So anything that claims to say this is what the world is and not emphasize those points is basically lying to you in a way.
Okay, I see.
And that's kind of, you can see throughout all his life, that is like the surrealist ethos in a way, you know.
Like,
It's the one. It's like the driving factor, kind of that idea of like we live in a world very like we're very sure of ourselves when we shouldn't be.
Yes,
you know.
Yes.
And I think we'll definitely see it with Nazarin for sure. His Blake kind of mentioned this. His like he's very rational at the beginning, but towards the end, he's not. But I would put a little bit difference in terms of like he's very rational, or he's kind of very sure in that belief of religion himself. And at the end, he starts to very doubt that idea of like.
I mean, that's like isn't that exactly what happens in Diary of a Country Priest too? Like,
yes, yeah, that's why I love that comparison too. And I actually like this movie a little more than that one because it stays a little more detached for my liking in that one. Where like, I still love both movies, but I just like this one a little bit more because I don't know, they're both very interesting in their own ways. Yeah. Maybe just the music. I don't know.
You just think Bresson gets a little too sappy. Towards the priest at the end.
But I love both.
You feel too bad for him.
Yeah. It's like a little sentimental and stuff. They're both similar movies like that. This idea of like, is like that kind of religion
facing
possible.
The real world, basically.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
the truth,
exactly.
like or the reality, basically.
So, before we go to the movies, I wanted to mention just a couple just like things I've read from a couple different writers, like as I've been researching Buñuel for the episode. Basically, like I wanted to mention these because they're almost like they're very similar ideas of how they both see how, like, so if, let's say Buñuel doesn't believe in religion, right? Because most people take religion and they, especially, and I'm mainly talking about Christianity because Buñuel says like the religion, when he's talking about religion, he mainly knows Christianity only. Like that's the world he grew up in, Spain and Mexico and stuff. So like he doesn't really talk about much anything else really. But from that perspective, so let's say he's denying religion. Does he have any other approaches or ways to approach reality if he doesn't like this kind of short thing of religion? And these two separate writers both kind of say similar things. So I wanted to read them. First is from Robert Hammond, and he says, quote, The feudal aspect of Buñuel's work springs from the fact that there is almost a complete balance between good and evil actions. That is, the act of goodwill and the act of ill will. It would appear that the more extreme these acts are, the more they are capable of producing the equal and opposite reaction. We could well call this the law of conservation of moral energy. It is basic to Buñuel's philosophy and bears extensive study. And I just love like that idea, law of conservation of moral energy. Because I remember, and I'm going to mention them through these episodes too, but this idea of I called it like heavy contrast, or you could say like basically when Buñuel had these like sharp contrasts in his films, between like you think he's saying one thing in one scene, all of a sudden he's like saying the exact opposite in the next scene, like to kind of keep you off your balance. But like that's in a way like how Buñuel, I mean, yeah, how that's like how he approaches reality itself. You know, it's like there's like you could be for sure something's happening in one scene or one thing in your life, and something else completely different could happen the next moment. So like, there's no reason why you should be so sure about that one thing. You know. And we're gonna Milky Way has one of my favorite moments like that. But yeah, we'll get to it. But another and then now I'm gonna read a different guy. His name is Raymond Dorgnat, and he calls this basically the synthesis between two opposing polarities in Buñuel. So a very similar idea. But quote. If everything is holy, nothing is sacred. And if everything is fascinating, it's because everything is ambivalent. Indeed, Buñuel's films are profoundly dialectical in that every character, every event, is not an assertion of any one point, but is a synthesis between opposing polarities. The use of drama as a model for human experience implies an extensively dialectical approach to life. And that's what I love. Like, it's kind of saying the same thing, but like, in a way, Buñuel never presents even his own point of view as like the absolute point of view, you know. So that's why it's very hard to tell. Like, what does he actually believe? You know, like because he'll show like it's another one of my favorite moments in the Milky Way that we'll get to. But like, I even pointed out there's a very similar moment in Illusion Travels by Streetcar where you think like we're getting the right point of view according to especially like a liberal audience that he knows is watching. The right point of view will come from like the most evil character in the movie, you know, just to kind of throw you off. It's like, is this actually what he believes or something? And like the wrong point of view will come from like the innocent one in a way, you know, like to show you like okay, because normally a lot of movies will be like the innocent one is the one who's always right, and then like the evil one is one is wrong. But like he's saying life is way more complex. Is actually the other way, more likely in a lot of cases, you know. So it's like. He's basically making us think about those ideas, where life is way more mysterious or uneasy in a way. But yeah, that's kind of what I mentioned. And there's one more thing, because this kind of leads to next week, and especially these last 4 movies we're going to do, is basically the idea of another reason why Buñuel is fairly attracted to religion is the idea of the erotic in Christianity, and like Christianity in one way seems to be so against it. But like that's part of why like it seems like it's so drawn to it in a way, you know, like because this quote especially made me think of like this is another reason why Fellini loves Buñuel too, is because I was thinking about this whole like you can tell Fellini was also really raised Catholic, you know, like even all his movies, you know, like
I mean you remember the
Amarcord scene, that's some of the best scenes, but let me read this quote because quote. Eroticism without Christianity is a kind of half-baked eroticism because there's no sense of sin. Agnostic eroticism is fresh and natural, but eroticism mixed with Christianity creates a sense of sin. It's the conflict that does it. And then Max Alb asked him, so as you see it, there's no eroticism in India? And he says, of course there is. There's eroticism as an eros, but... And then Alb says, but not as conflict. And he's like, yes, not like Christianity or Judaism. Christianity, really. I don't think the sense of sin is so strongly developed or so compelling in any other religion as it is in Christianity.
Interesting.
And we're gonna we get it, especially more in the Milky Way, but especially in the movies we're doing next week. That's why I'm bringing this up. Is part of why he's kind of saying is like why Christians love the erotic and sin, because like they go together in a way. He thinks like that clash, that there's something important in there, and we'll see it in these movies too. Like the movies we're doing next week, like. He basically likes that clash, you know.
Yeah. Especially, I'm sure
yes.
Eldridge Dyer is like, it's awesome.
You can see that too, like, it always seemed that way with even like really conservative Christians. Like, why do they love like talking about sex so much if they hate it, you know? Like, but it's something definitely that's been a topic for a while.
I mean, priests, Catholic priests.
Exactly.
Controversies that I'm not going to name, but.
Controversies, like, you know, like the idea of just them loving hearing confessions all the time. No, but I think that idea is interesting just because I mentioned, even from the beginning, the idea of montage. What is montage for Eisenstein? It's clash, right? It's conflict. Yeah. So Buñuel taking the idea of like the clash of sin and the erotic, you know, of Christianity, and saying like, how can I do that in montage form? Is like, it kind of fits very perfectly, you know, through images. Yeah. And that's what Buñuel does. So, but yeah, that's basically all I had on religion. Is there anything that comes to mind when I say that?
I mean, I kind of already said it, but like, you can definitely feel that, like, especially like thinking about it.
I love how you said the ambivalency too, because that's kind of what he's going for, you know. It's like they're very similar words, like mystery, doubt, ambiguity.
Like which I mean, it's why I kind of feel like it's harder on first watch, because you're like, especially when you're not expecting that.
Yes.
So that's why I think I'll probably like it more on rewatch.
Yes.
Both these movies really like.
No. Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. Then I think we can just get right into Nazarin. I wanted to start with Nazarin by quoting. I think I've already quoted Simone Weil once, but it's weird how much I've been thinking about Buñuel when like reading some of her stuff. But quote: "The poet produces the beautiful by fixing his attention on something real. It is the same with the act of love. To know that this man who is hungry and thirsty really exists as much as I do, that is enough. The rest follows of itself." And I wanted to pick that because, in a way that like reminds me that, especially with Nazarin, I think that's what the movie's about. Is like we see Nazarin, the whole movie kind of had that idea. It's like every person is equal in his eyes, you know. Like he's trying, but the whole point of the movie is like Buñuel is almost like questioning like. In a normal movie, you might see like, okay, yeah, he has struggles, but at least at the end, he believes.
He still has his values.
Yeah, he still has the value. Like,
values.
That's like at least he learned that along the way. But like in this one, it's like. Does he learn that along the way? It's like, if anything, he has those values weakened.
Like, can those values even exist? Like, can you even see people on that level?
Yes.
Like, is that even possible?
Yes. Is it even possible? Buñuel wants to ask the question more than anything. You know, he's not giving an answer one way or the other. He's like asking the viewer to be like, is it possible? You know, in this world that you see, like, but before I go in, like, what do you guys? Is there anything specifically about Nazarin that you guys want to say? Maybe that you didn't already.
What's the difference between scorn and forgiveness?
Between scorn?
Scorn and forgiveness.
Yeah. Or how hard is it? Like, especially towards the ending scenes. Like, he just definitely starts asking that idea. Because he seems so calm at the beginning, you know, like for everything that's happening to him. But,
he does just seem sure of himself at the very beginning, and he loses that as he goes on.
No, he does. Yeah. Especially since, like, it's not like he's an amateur at the beginning either. Like,
no.
It seems like he's already knows what he's doing. Like, he's already kind of accepted.
There's also a lot of, like, little things in this movie that, like, they kind of have that surrealist touch to it. Like the priest, like, how people get in and out of his house is through the window.
Yes.
Like, I don't know what that means.
Funny.
I was like, what is that even, like, what's even the point of that? Like,
it's like that huge window.
Yeah, like...
Basically, I kind of just, like, showing he has, like, literally no privacy at all.
Yeah, I guess... It's just, like, it's just an interesting way to, like, depict that.
But I like how you said, basically this movie's kind of like, is this even possible? Because, let me read basically what Buñuel said about Nazarin. Quote, I'm fond of the character Nazarin, Buñuel's remarks. He's a priest, so what? He could just as well be a hairdresser or a waiter. What interests me is that he sticks to his ideas, that they are unacceptable to society, and that after his adventures with prostitutes, thieves, etc., they lead him to irrevocable condemnations by the forces of order. And then he says, he goes on to say, he's paraphrasing Dostoevsky's The Grand Inquisitor, the work which inspired the film. Buñuel said, if Christ were to return, they'd crucify him again. It is possible to be relatively Christian, but the absolutely pure, the absolutely innocent man, he's bound to fail. I am sure that if Christ came back, the church, the powerful churchmen, would condemn him again. And I think that's kind of like, we kind of mentioned, but that whole idea is like, Nazarin's trying to be like Christ, right? But Buñuel believes if Christ came back again, they would kill him again. So, so basically that's what he's saying about Nazarin is like this idea is it's just breaking him down, like to the point where Nazarin's, at least we don't see him lose his belief, but he's definitely doubting him by the end, you know. But that's why I don't know if it's a pessimistic film or not.
It's honest.
To me, it's honest.
Yeah, that's kind of how I read it.
But it's if you're honest about the world, a lot of people see that as pessimistic. Right? Because to me, it's different. There are but definitely moments of optimism in the movie too, where he at least makes it seem a little bit possible, you know. Yeah. But I wanted to mention. I mentioned Robert Hammond a little earlier. I wanted to mention what he also says about Nazarin, because he mentions this kind of dual aspect to Buñuel and religion that I've been mentioning of. There's the church or the clerical aspect of religion that Buñuel doesn't like, but then there's maybe the Christ or the attitude of Christ that he sees as something else. So, quote, "Anti-clerical the play surely is, since Nazarin's desire to live the life of Christ stems from observing the vices of greed and gluttony and pride among his fellow priests. It is they, indeed, who help to persecute him and tempt him satanically by saying to him in jail that if he will only stop his foolishness, they will see that he's freed. But the attitude towards Christ is a little less obvious. Was Christ a fool? It is not that this Buñuel wants to know. He is more interested in pointing out that Christ and the dynamo are incompatible. I think dynamo just means machine, but basically saying Christ and the machine is not possible.
Yes.
And like I kind of mentioned earlier, he sees the machine as the church in this instance, right? But that's
or it's like
mythology.
Like is he like you're saying like demythifying?
I think especially with the Milky Way, yes, that's what he's doing. But I think he sees like that's why I don't think he's like uniquely atheist or uniquely anti-religious, right? Because he sees religion as just another one of those kind of structures of the machine, you know, that kind of keeps things the same. When like why would you want like he says earlier, why do you want to keep things the same if we don't live in the best possible world, you know? And that's why he wants to kind of bring people out of this kind of he says like bourgeois conformity, you know. I think we really, and especially with those later movies, like Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie is a little about that in a way. You know, they keep trying to, you know, do the same thing over and over again, even though it's not working. But there's another writer I read. This was a while ago, but her name is Joan Mellon. She actually wrote like the intro to the book called The World of Luis Buñuel, and she mentions another kind of. She mentions basically that Nazarin. She says, "quote Nazarin's credo is revolutionary and socialist. Everything, he insists, belongs to those who need it." I think that's kind of like it's there in the background way of like, you even see this in like the early Gospels and stuff. This idea of like Jesus being kind of revolutionary and socialist, if you want to put it in those ways, in terms of like being very extreme in terms of like I know he'll quote it later at the end in terms of like. If you follow me, there's no father and mother. You know, he says to the rich man, give up all your possessions, stuff like that.
I mean,
but if you think about that like Buñuel's even pointed out the fact that like that kind of teaching doesn't even fit with the church. You know,
I know Rossellini kind of did something similar with the Messiah, because I think he was quoted saying like the Messiah is like a Christian or Jesus film for Marxists.
Rossellini said that?
Yeah.
It's a Christian film for Marxists?
Something, yeah, like a Jesus film for Marxists.
Interesting.
And then he said his, like he was going to make a Karl Marx movie after it, before he died. And he said that would have been a Marxist movie for Christians.
Interesting.
Which I don't really know what he means by that, but it's interesting.
And it's just probably because they have the same beliefs, basically. I mean, Jesus' beliefs at the core are very communist and socialist and stuff like that.
Well, to me, it's backwards.
It's
the other way around. Well, it's kind of both. Like, Marxist beliefs in a lot of ways comes because of early Christian beliefs.
No, yes, exactly.
You know, like, Christianity came like 18
No,
years
yeah,
before.
it's just, it's the thing that probably Buñuel sees, and the fucking like two-faced nature of the church. Like they espouse all these beliefs about like helping the poor, helping the people in need, and then you just see their coffers like full of gold.
Yes.
Yes. And they aren't doing anything. Like they literally take money from the poor and say, "Oh, this will be returned to you in heaven." Like,
but especially with the Milky Way, but both these movies is the church has in a hugely invested interest in the system being as it is.
No, yes.
Because they get their donations the same way like a business does, the exact same way. You know, like, it would hard for them to be like, give up all your possessions if they rely on your 10% of income every month. You know, like, as every church preaches about tithing and stuff. So, like, it would make no sense for them to be like, okay, give all your possessions because how will they get their income next month, etc. But it's like, that's different than what Jesus was saying. Like, Jesus doesn't talk about any of that stuff. So, like, that's why I think Buñuel is kind of interested in that aspect of, at least, he's not even saying he's for Jesus. He's almost saying, like, just this incompatibility of, at the core of what Christianity is Christ. He's saying it doesn't even fit with, like, what Christianity is, in a way, you know? But there's one other aspect in Nazarin I really like. And I think it's kind of, we kind of talked about this last week, too, but that's why I said the movie's not purely pessimistic. I think it just, the way it clearly has just a love for all types of people. I think it kind of like clearly shines through with the movie with like
that's like the classic, like that's just like what Buñuel like is about with a lot of his like road type movies.
And that's why I don't think he's like purely cynical, because he's like, in a way, just by the way he presents certain images and stuff, it's like even if these people are crazy, like even if they're not savable, it's like we still love them, you know, like they're still worth loving in a way.
They're human.
And I want to read, it's kind of long, but Max Ob, I'm sure you guys remember basically this kind of weird, it's like one of Buñuel's, in a way, most romantic but most weird love relationships between the dwarf and this, this like old street, I forgot what her job is, but, but anyway, Max Ob, he loves this, let me just read it because it's really beautiful, because there are like certain points in the book where he like, they'll be talking about something, so they're talking about Nazarin. And then at the very end of the conversation, he just starts writing, like you can tell he's writing later, like without Buñuel, kind of. Okay. And so he just starts writing about Nazarin at the end. He goes, and love, those love scenes between the dwarf Ujo and the prostitute Andara are the sweetest ones in all of Buñuel. He has never done anything else so tender as that, not in dialogue or in images. Love in Luis Buñuel, and this is true of all manners art, is only something that happens between opposites. And here I'm not talking about the relationship between the old man and the young girl, which occurs so often in his work, or between rich and poor, or between the thug and the dove. I'm talking about the hunchback and the whore, a love only thwarted by the dwarf's physical inability to follow the line of the prisoners. The monstrous touches us with almost evangelical tenderness that Buñuel almost never surpasses. The sight of Ujo left behind all alone in the dust is even more heart-wrenching than Chaplin, who is often abandoned in all his films. And here, miraculously, the union of opposites, of what can't be reconciled, is neither repugnant nor perverse. Buñuel achieves right there what Henri Breton called for: the union of life and death, of the real and the imaginary, of the high and the low, in every sense of the two words. The contradiction disappears for a moment in and because of their love.
Damn.
And yeah, he like goes off.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting. Like that's what Buñuel is like. I've kind of been pointing out, right? Like this huge contrast in his films. Like in a way, that's how he sees life, and without ever trying to resolve them. You know, almost just like just seeing the kind of contrast of life itself. But yeah, I think that's all I really had to say about Nazarin. I think we get started in the movie. I played the tamales come up once later on in the movie, but like the guy screaming tamales like has never made me want food so bad. Like, no, but it also has like one of Buñuel's most basically stylistic moments in all of his movies. If you guys remember what I'm saying, like it happens at the very beginning. Because it starts with like a painting, like a drawing.
Oh yes, okay.
And then it like fades right to like the real life setting, like that looks exactly the same. I'm like, damn, Buñuel.
No, yes, I thought the same thing whenever I saw that cut this morning. I was like, oh shit.
I was like, damn, okay.
Wells has a really similar cut.
And which one?
Citizen Kane.
Yeah, but he does shit like that all the time.
I mean, he does.
Like when I was like, damn, like he never does stuff like that. Well, it reminds me more of like something that would happen in like the trial, like where he's using like the drawings. I guess it's not the exact same.
I was saying because like in Citizen Kane, Lily like goes up to like a photograph on the wall, and then like
and that one changes.
It like changes to the actual photograph.
Okay. No, you're probably right.
But it's like insane.
Damn, who else does that? Kiarostami does that. Have you seen 24 Frames?
No.
Oh, he does.
I need to watch it.
No, 24 Frames is pretty good. But okay, back to the movie. This is another one where he also starts with like not even introducing the leads originally, because it was like we're just seeing like these random, just like the crowded market and stuff. We see some guy's saying they're going to introduce electricity soon, and another guy's like, "There's no way. Like, there's no such thing as a public utility." But then the camera kind of goes upstairs, and we see Nazarin's been robbed. Already, like basically right off the bat, he's like already on a. He's already bad things already happened to him. I guess.
Can you rob someone that doesn't have anything though?
Well, yeah, that's basically what he's kind of saying. Like that's why he doesn't seem that worried about it. I feel like
he's like the only clothes I have right now are the ones that I'm wearing. It's because I'm wearing it. Basically, it's like the way reason why it's not robbed.
No, it's funny because like we're basically seeing these opening scenes to see how he's treated in the kind of the external environment he's in. Because like we see multiple women like making fun of him and stuff.
Like that, yeah.
And like later on, a guy comes and asks him like, "Okay, why aren't you pressing charges if you know who you did it?" And he's like, "I don't have the habit to press charges," which is kind of funny. But it's that idea, right? He's trying to be like this kind of Christ-like figure in a way, you know. And it's like it's funny because it's not. It's like from the beginning, he's not getting treated like that at all, you know. Like it's he's already like even like it's funny because he's even getting robbed by the people that are eventually like going to be following him and stuff. But. This is where that line I said where like Joe Mellon said he's kind of has like revolutionary like tendencies or whatever. He says, "quote I profess my ideas with conviction, as I may my faith in Christ the Lord. Things don't belong to anybody; they are for whoever need them." But yeah, I love that because like it's easy to say that, but it's harder to say that when you right after you get robbed, you know. So like you kind of have respect for him when he's like at least at the beginning for anyway.
Well, you believe him whenever he says he wasn't robbed, essentially, because he doesn't have anything worth taking.
That's
like
true,
that's the type of guy he feels like he is at the very beginning.
And I think it's significant because I've kind of skipped some where like even during like where he's having conversations with some of these people, we'll see other people come in and be like, "Oh, I need some of this stuff," and he's like, "All right,
all right, go take it."
And she's like, "I need something else." He's like, "All right, whatever."
It's like he doesn't feel like he has ownership over anything. So.
No, yeah, exactly. Which is that is the whole communist thing in a way, right? There's no idea of ownership really. But
and there's even that moment where they're talking about like charity and how it like affects the person receiving the charity, and he says something about like there's no reason like
he says charity doesn't degrade the recipient nor does it affect dignity. Yeah. Because they're like because this is basically the point where he's like, I'm gonna have to. Basically, they ask him if he's embarrassed because he's always having to ask for charity, and then he says that. And the reason that's also important is because the last scene of the movie is him basically doubting that. Yeah. Is like, yeah. It is. Yes. Which makes it really interesting because he doesn't necessarily disagree with this still, but you can tell he's having doubts about this idea that he feels very. You could tell he's very strong, at least in these ideas towards the beginning of this movie. You know. Like there's another quote I like where someone asked him, "So you challenge outrage, hunger, poverty, persecution, and slandering?" And he says, "I don't challenge them; I withstand them," which another. And I think I forgot to mention it during the beginning, but Buñuel was also a huge fan of reading like the lives of the saints, like even after he was an atheist and stuff, like later on in his life, and that makes more sense with the Milky Way. But it's also you can also see it in this movie too, like just the idea of a road movie alone. A lot of saints' lives are about just traveling along the road and seeing like people they meet and stuff, but just also this kind of like. These saintly ideas, right? The idea of not challenging hunger, but just withstanding them. This kind of that kind of idea. But yeah, then we go back to
where the persecution complex comes from, though, that we have nowadays. That's also bad. So
honestly, yes,
because we're not persecuted.
Well, that sense of sin I mentioned with the erotic, that's true with a lot of Christianity. Just that idea of guilt. But and then it cuts to like one of the. Like this is a classic Buñuel funny moment where you see a woman, one of the leads, about to kill herself. She's like,
trying
to hang herself.
The way she fell is so funny. It's like the thing just like cracks. Like it's like she can't even kill herself.
And then the woman that sees her, she's like, if you want to die, use a beam that won't break. But it's just like this idea of this world. Like even as a woman is about to kill herself, if someone comes to see her, it's like she's like not even that surprised by it.
Yeah,
she's like get back to
work.
It's
a normal thing. Like everyday thing.
It's honestly, it's like you feel bad for laughing because she did just try to kill herself. It's so funny.
It's like a silent gag in a way.
It's so funny because
she's kind of insane.
Definitely. Well, she's literally like, if you want to die and people know, say go jump in front of a train or something like that. I'm just like, oh my god.
No, but then we find out why because it's like she finds out that I don't think it's her husband, just like her it's just a boyfriend or something that's back in the town who I guess has already been gone once. But I think it's like the next scene we see them talking, and like she seems it's one of those things where she seems very sad that he's here, but at the same time she doesn't want him to leave again.
Yeah.
But then like of course he's a dick. He's like, I'm leaving right away.
Yeah,
but the main reason I mentioned this scene is like because we get a couple scenes of her just breaking down, like almost like from the stress and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that like in terms of Buñuel's honesty, we get that like especially through her character multiple times of this idea of like. It seems like from her point of view, she like definitely thinks she's like possessed by demons or like she has that idea in her head. You can tell, especially the second time when she's like freaking out and she's like literally on the ground like writhing like a demon.
Yeah.
But Buñuel's kind of making this like point. At least I think is like even if it's not a real demon, the way this guy is in her life is like a demon basically. You know, the way he keeps coming in and out of her life, like the way he's in her thoughts constantly. Like
He's a handsome devil.
yeah. damn. Like,
Okay. Horned up on me.
Oh, that's what she thinks. I guess.
Hey,
Yeah, that's what she thinks.
A man has a mustache like that, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, he does. He has a good
And he puts the sombrero on.
Yeah. I mean, you can see why she fell for him. I guess.
I guess. I am kind of in love with Caesar from Excuse Me.
Oh my, this guy can't let go of Caesar.
I will never.
That fucking fake Italian accent.
He gets me every time. It's not fake. He's real. 100%.
He's a real fake Italian.
It's the great. We're talking about the great Caesar here.
World famous.
But then I say that because the next scene is like after we see her kind of like breaking down laughing is / crying. We cut outside to two other women basically getting a fight about I think Krona's the one who like we're gonna be following and stuff. She accuses someone else of stealing from her cousin, and that's the cousin who also stole from Nazarin at the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what makes her I believe Nazarin later on. But basically they get in a fight. She pulls out a knife, I guess, during the fight and stuff, and that's what leads her after she gets injured to go into Nazarin's room.
Yeah.
She comes, but see that's also kind of funny because I think I mentioned it like, just the idea of these contrasts. Like one scene, she like just doesn't like this guy at all.
Yeah.
And then after she gets in a serious situation, all of a sudden she's
like,
of course.
I mean, that's how a lot of people treat religion, though.
Oh
like,
yeah.
It's like
honestly, yeah.
They only care about it when they actually like
When either
they have some kind of
death
guilt or like
guilt.
something they did like that's their fault that
Yeah.
they need some like atonement for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's still interesting. Like this is not kind of related, but it's related in a way. Like when people still think of religion is like I've noticed one way is like people don't believe in religion at all, but if someone really bad dies, like oh they're definitely going to hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like it's something to make you feel good. It's like the opposite of guilt.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But like, but in a way, it almost like kind of defeats your point because like if you don't believe in hell, it's like oh that means he gets the same punishment as we do.
Yeah.
But I mean that's another topic. But,
Yeah.
but I've just noticed that it's almost like the opposite of guilt in a way. It's like
No,
it makes you feel good by thinking about hell in certain instances. It's the same reason Christians believe in hell.
Yeah.
It's when people say that, but people don't even believe in hell. Like in religion in general, will still say that.
It's more of a symbol, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but they'll still believe it in a way. It's like oh they're definitely going to
Yeah,
hell.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's like in that moment you have that feeling of hell and hell like real art like exists in a way.
Yes.
But yeah, she's back, and this is kind of like we get a few kind of good scenes of like the women basically kind of questioning Nazarin, and this is one where she's kind of like asking him questions and stuff, and it's kind of like this is what I like about when you say Buñuel's honest. This is what I really like moments like this where in a normal movie you like the clear delineations between like the innocent woman that is tortured by her circumstances and the priest who's struggling to help her. Like, it might be just like more sentimentally done, but in this one, it's just like it's like feels so confusing. Like
No, definitely.
does Nazarin like her? Does he not like her? Like in a way, he's like,
Is she like a nuisance or not?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Is she a nuisance? Like, does she even appreciate what he's
yeah,
doing?
like-
All these kind of stuff are very more blurry than just.
Is he like pretending to like help? Like
Yes.
be okay
Is he
with
doing
her
it just
being
because
there?
like it's his morals,
Yeah.
or is it like does he actually feel it? All these
Yes.
like at least when I'm watching these scenes, like I get those kind of questions because like there's a moment where this like you can tell this idea of confessions. There's like even the way it's framed, like she's sitting in the bed and it's like cut back and forth to where it's almost like confession in a way.
Yeah.
Because like there's like another like laughing moment where it cuts. There's like a painting of Jesus in the room, and he starts saying "mea culpa," which I guess is none of us are really Catholic, I guess, so we've never done confession, but mea culpa just means the direct quote is just through my fault, or it's my fault, basically. Okay. And I guess people, that's like you're supposed to say that in the booth. So he keeps saying mea culpa, and then like there's like this really creepy shot, like the face of Jesus like turning to a smile, like laughing all of a sudden at her.
So creepy.
It's so creepy too.
Was this the Is this because doesn't the camera like have like a ripple effect at some point? Is that this?
That's
scene?
That's the next one.
Is that the next scene? Okay.
No, that was actually the previous one where after they got in the fight, we saw her like writhing on the floor, like she's like possessed by the demon. Yeah, she has the dream sequence. Of, her and the husband. I kind of skipped over.
But that ripple effect is so crazy for a movie in like 1950.
Yes.
It's like, damn.
No, it is. But the reason I mentioned this one though, because it's like saying the mea culpa, and then the soundtrack cuts to a kid being spanked, and then the movie cuts, and then the film cuts to that scene of the kid being spanked, and we think it's the mother. But then the actual mother comes, and she's like, "Why are you spanking my kid?" And she comes to take him, and I was like, "Why is this even in here?" Yeah. But I think he's comparing like this idea of like a priest saying mea culpa or like asking for your confession away is almost like random, like a random woman hitting your kid, you know, like. Okay. That's the only thing I can think of because it's like so sudden. Like we literally see the mea culpa, and then all of a sudden we hear the spanking happening, almost like. I think if I had to guess, that's what he's saying, but. But then we come back to the room again. I think it's like the next day, and I love some of these questions she asks them because it's like they're so random, but they're kind of good questions too. Because I wrote it down. She's right. She asks them, if a body's lying on the mat dead, how do you know it's dead? Why do chicks hatch from eggs looking like chickens? Why are 3 buzzards bad and 2 good? That's like some random superstition, I guess. How are mice small and cunning, but rats huge and stupid? Why are souls released from purgatory by giving money to priests? I don't think he actually. Oh yeah, and then the scene kind of ends where he's like, "Alas, there's nothing that I'll do to answer your question. No, alas, since there's nothing to do, I'll answer your questions one by one. I'll begin by clearing up the first, which is the easiest yet most mysterious. Why are we born?" Yeah. It's like, damn, that's like a Buñuel. Like you could say that's like a Buñuel theme in a way, like life in a way is like the easiest but most mysterious question at the same time.
Honestly,
you know? Yeah. Especially for like I mentioned, he like grew up loving insects and animals and stuff like that. But like that kind of idea, you know, like from a scientific perspective, like life is easy to explain, but in another way, it's like much more mysterious.
We're kind of familiar with it, but not really. Like.
Yeah. But no, yeah.
We'll experience life, I guess, but it's like in a way you almost can't describe it.
Exactly. Like, yeah. At least purely using like scientific terms, anyway. Yeah. But yeah, that's why I like that scene anyway. But then kind of like before, this is kind of how you could say the most narrative tension in the movie happens is after she's hiding, the police kind of find out that I actually forget how they find out that I think someone rats her out or something.
Something like that.
But basically
the other woman it's like
comes and warns them.
Yeah, warns, and then that's
in my notes I have her like as suicide woman because I she was the one that was like putting those
suicide hater woman. Like,
well she's the one that no.
Oh, is this the?
Oh, you're talking about the one that comes and warns them. Yes.
Yeah. She's the suicide hater.
Yes. Yeah. No. I'm talking about the other one.
Okay. Yeah.
But basically, some stuff happens, and they decide they have to run away.
Yeah.
Because like they can't stay in the town anymore, and I forget why Nazarin has to run away though.
Because I think it's
because he's already implicated with them.
Or
actually,
he hit her. Yeah, he hit her.
So he hit her basically, but I don't think he actually runs away with them initially. So what we see is first like, the main one, Krona, she decides she's gonna burn all her stuff, and it's kind of like it's kind of a beautiful scene in a way because I think like Buñuel's almost saying like just like the idea of like burning your past and stuff because for Buñuel this is a long ass time of how long she spends like just getting all this stuff, putting it in the center of her floor. Then she like even gets like the Saint Anthony like statue or something. She puts it right in the middle. and then she like burns it, and we see like
See, that was the weirdest part to me because I was like, I don't know why she grabbed the saint statue and then took the baby out. Like she didn't want to burn Jesus, but she was fine with burning the priest, which is kind of what we see this movie be about. Is like this. Priest.
I don't remember. I didn't even recognize the taking the baby out thing.
Yeah, she took the baby out and just laid it back down. So it's just the priest that's burning, and that's kind of what the movie ends up being. Essentially, is this priest burning for her sins?
Well, it's also interesting because it's like. I feel like it also is like bringing up a question like, what's the line for like a priest like this to help someone like this? Like how far can you really help someone? Like where's the like?
Yes.
How do you even do that if you're like a priest before you get like, or basically like in, I guess just like, basically supporting them in a way,
or you're hurting them, or whatever.
It's like.
Because did she kill the other woman? That's what that's what she's hiding from, right? She said she
I don't
killed
know.
the
Do they
other
actually?
woman.
Does
I don't know
die?
if we ever get confirmed, but since they're chasing them, I'm assuming she actually did.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Damn, I actually don't know if they ever mentioned that.
Well, I know that whenever she like crawls in through the window, she said, "I think I killed her."
Yes, I know she
like
thinks
that,
she.
so.
Okay.
And since they're after her,
No, because the synopsis says after hiding a murderer.
Okay.
A Catholic priest is forcing to sell it. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, we basically get
alleged murder. No,
I think this, like Buñuel does kind of focus it on purpose. It's like he spends a long time of her like getting all the stuff, burning it. It's honestly one of his like I don't know, most exciting shots in a way of like just this huge fire burning. We even see the first we see the we get a good shot of them like running away from the fire like in a wide shot, and then it cuts back to like the camera like panning to the fire like through the window. Just showing they're kind of like running away from this. They're trying to run away from this past anyway.
Yes.
But then it cuts to Nazarin. He's also I don't think he's run away, but he's basically just been kicked out of the town, I guess, because he's like working in this house. I think he's working in this house. I think he's working.
Yeah.
But anyway, some guy comes up and asks him.
Well, he's in plain clothes at this point, right?
Yeah, that's why I thought I thought he was working.
I think he's just on the road already.
But he's in a house, like when they catch him.
But I think it's important that he like gets into plain clothes.
No, that's definitely true because he's working at this point. Because the guy asks him, "How could you admit to seeing the fight and helping those women?" And he says, "There's only one way of telling the truth, telling it." You know, and we see like he's still trying to keep these kind of values, you know. But they're in a way like that's why. Maybe I'll ask this way: like compared to Ivory Country Priest, I don't know if we're in the Country Priest we're supposed to see him more as like he's a beginner, you know, he's like a novice, you know, like he still doesn't know like the people are kind of like he goes in thinking the people are going to be so innocent, you know, and like they're just like waiting to be saved, and he kind of learns that truth.
He's discovering.
But Nazarin is a little different, where I feel like he already knows that about people in a way.
So it's like he's like,
but it's
further
like
down,
still like he's still like being like
he's like further down like the.
He's still further that. That's what I'm saying. Like he doesn't feel like an amateur.
Yeah.
But it still feels like he's being beat down even a little more slowly, I guess.
Yeah.
That's why
I think they both coexist in that way. Though,
yes,
like,
yes.
They can do it to both a beginner and like a expert in a way.
Yes, yes. No. Especially for Buñuel, yeah. Then like the guy asks him, "How will you support yourself?" And he says, "Begging." He's like, "A priest begging? Don't forget priestly dignity." And he says, "Don't worry, nobody will notice that I'm a priest." And I love that. Like, for Buñuel, like, what is make a priest? Like, for the church, it's just the guy in the robes, you know, that's on the church on Sunday. But like, at least for Nazarin, it's like definitely something else, you know.
Definitely.
But I also want to mention that. Okay, so Max, let me just read this little short conversation. Max Op says, "You have an acting career. You've appeared a lot in your own films and in a few by other people. You've always liked playing a priest." And Buñuel says, "It must be because disguises really suit me. You know I love wearing a disguise. Just now in Spain, in one of Sarah's films, I played an executioner. I garroted 7 men."
Damn.
But no, it's first of all I didn't know he played in a movie in 1964. But
like the lead or like a supporting?
A supporting.
What's the?
It's called Weeping for a Bandit.
Okay.
I had to look it up too because he didn't mention the movie, but no, he mentions a few times where Buñuel he just says like casually like he would just wear disguises randomly just to see if he'd get away with it and stuff.
That's hilarious.
But apparently he really liked wearing being like when he would wear disguises, he would wear a priest disguise a lot too.
That makes the discreet charm a lot.
But that's why I was pointing this out because like we see it here, this idea of like what's a priest if he's wearing like normal clothes, but we also see that in discreet charm, the idea of a priest like who's a gardener too, or like he's now a gardener, but he was a former priest.
Yeah.
But they keep getting confused and calling him a priest and stuff. But yeah. But then we see Nazarin on the road. This is where he's like on the road. He finds a job. It's kind of crazy how fast he loses this job.
Yeah.
Like he finds it, and I don't even really understand the conversation the like lead men have about him, like the reason they have to fire him.
Yeah.
But it's so funny because all they come up to him and they just say, one guy says to him, "You know," and then he just walks and he gets his bag and he starts walking off.
Well, I think it's because it's kind of like this, like, if you're working just for food and we're working for money, then that means they can hire people to just work for food, and then we'll be out of jobs and we'll also have to work just for food.
So, because he's willing to work for food.
It's like the whole, like, why people are against, like, the wrong reason of being against immigration in the United States. Like, oh, all these people are coming over the border. And they're taking all of our jobs for way cheaper.
Yeah.
It's just that same type of thing.
Okay, yeah.
At least in my opinion, that's what this is.
It did seem like something like that. Like they're like, yeah, because they're talking about something like that too.
Yeah.
But yeah. But anyway, they say and he like starts walking away. And just like it's like unnecessary, you think it's like unnecessary bullying, but you see right after it's to set up this kind of contrast where like the guy like throws a rock at him like as he's leaving, dude, just to kind of like bully him extra. Damn, yeah. And it seems like no reason, but then like it cuts to Nazarin he's like walking, and then all of a sudden you hear a gunshot in the background of like a fight going on. You're like, oh, thank God he got out in time.
Yeah, honestly,
because it happens right after, and then like it just shows him like eating an apple from a tree, almost like happily, but like
celebrating.
But then he keeps walking. And this is where he looks like just a beggar at this point. He's like honestly, with the cane and stuff. Really. But the reason I say that is because this is where he sees the two, or he only sees one of them. Her name is Beatrice. She's the one that was trying to commit suicide.
Yeah.
He sees her, and she's like begging him to come where they're living because there's like a little girl that's like about to die and stuff. And so he decides to come, and like this is like in a way it's like one of the saddest scenes in the movie in a way, because I think Buñuel's kind of commenting on like why women, especially in like different cultures and stuff, like why they believe so strongly in religion. It's like maybe he's not saying why, but it's like he's just saying that stuff like this happens because I've seen it myself. It's like this girl is sick, but they have no one else to go to, so they're almost just begging that they just need him to be the answer in a way, even if he because it's like one of the saddest scenes in the movie where they're all like crying like really loudly and stuff, and they're asking him to heal her, but he's like telling her, he even says, "I'm not a healer. If God chooses to take her, it's best for her soul," like trying to emphasize the idea of like he's not like supernatural, he's like God and science in the way, like saying it's like the same thing to him. So it seems like extra brutal when like that's all they want is someone to heal. Like they clearly believe that he is a healer, So this idea that he knows he can't be what they need is like you almost just see it in his face, and like there's like even a close up on his face that's just like looking down. It's like the hand, like there's like hands on his chest and stuff. But another thing is I don't think it actually shows whether or not it doesn't show him healing her, because it cuts to them all crying and stuff with that scene, and then the next scene is him walking away, but then she comes running to him after and she's like, oh, she healed. Like it's kind of cut the way like he didn't do anything we're supposed to expect anyway, because he's like sad the way he's walking away, and all of a sudden she's like running and she's like, oh, she was healed. So like there's like a moment in Milky Way where we see this similar thing where like was it actually him or was it actually God in a way, because like Buñuel or was it just coincidence, but he never answers it. He just like leaves it like that,
Well, it's a mystery because I mean the belief of the mind is also a mystery, because there are instances of people like medicine doesn't help them, and then all of a sudden they just get better, and it's hard to describe why. But for some people, maybe their belief is just strong enough that if you pray the sacrament over this little girl, they will get healed.
Well, also,
it's one of the mysteries of life.
Honestly, like is about like a lot of his movies are about like how miracles you don't really like, they exist, but you just don't really see them in a way, or like.
Remember, Stars on My Crown too has kind of a similar.
Honestly, yeah. But it's like kind of like this in a way. I guess
it's just because like the pastor doesn't really want to take credit for it.
Yeah.
Like wholly, but. Like Blake is saying, it's not,
miracles don't have to be like, or miracles can happen, but there's like, they're not.
It doesn't mean it's necessarily because he was there in that room at the time, It's like more mysterious even than that. Like, that's why I think Buñuel was trying to leave it at that.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, that's why it's kind of interesting because I like when I watching the first time, like watching it this time, I even thought, oh, she must have not been healed because the way it's walking. And then all of a sudden she's running and she's like, oh, you healed her, and that's why they decide to follow him too, because they kind of see him as a saint now.
Or it's like Jesus, basically.
Yeah. But then there's like one of the, it's kind of just a good side scene in the movie where we see Nazarin walking by himself. He's still on the road, and then we see a horse carriage with the horse. The horse is cramping or has a broken leg or something. They're not sure. The horse is on the ground, and like this this colonel is like accusing the horse of like being lazy. He's like, these animals think they're smarter than us. So, but it's funny because like we see we see some random guy walk by the colonel and doesn't like greet him and stuff. And the colonel like gets all mad and he's like, "Hey, go back and do that again," which is just insane, honestly. If someone did that, but the guy does it, and then after he does it again, Nazarin comes and says to him, "Sir, you may think of me as you please, but I believe that such treatment is anti-Christian and rude. This is a man, not an animal, a son of God, as much as you, and he has his dignity in spite of any past, present, or future despo. After leaving my consciousness, I may go." And then he just starts walking off again. But just like we still like. I still don't think he loses this kind of consciousness this whole movie, which I think I mentioned last week, this idea for Buñuel and like personal morality was very important to him. I think we get that a lot in Nazarin, which is why I think Buñuel liked him a lot. It's just like that tension becomes more and more of like, is it even possible in the world? You know, it's just like that's what really becomes a bigger gap throughout the movie. But then when he keeps walking, and then that's when he realizes these two women are like kind of following him from behind him. And it's like one of my favorite quotes in the movie where he asks them, "Why are you following me?" And she says, "The road belongs to everybody."
Damn.
And just like from the scene we just saw is like kind of that same idea, right? Like on the road, everyone's the same, everyone's equal in a way.
I mean, also kind of socialist, I feel like.
Yes, too. Exactly. Yeah.
I guess it ties to what you said.
Yeah.
But
yeah. We get like it's honestly one of the sweetest scenes in the movie where like now the women are kind of like they've followed him, they're like on a campfire together, and they're talking, and he's like kind of teaching them more, and one of them asks, "Is God everywhere? Is God everywhere?" And he says, "Yes, everywhere." And she says, "Is he here too?" And he says, "Yes." And then she says, "Then eating this is like communion, isn't it?" I love that. It's a sweet moment. He's like, "Okay, that's too much." But honestly, I think that's kind of true a little bit in a way. But then the reason why I brought up Beatrice, the one that tried to commit suicide, is like demons. She even brings up in this moment, like she even talks about her own demons inside of her and stuff like that. And we'll talk about more about like surrealism and dreams in the coming episodes. But I think, like you said, there's some surrealist aspects of these movies. I think this is the most in this one. Is like Buñuel kind of equating this idea of like demons in like a Christian context, or when like people believe in demons, it's like this is what they're kind of talking about more. You know, these kind of internal demons people have in their own heads a lot of times. Okay. Yeah. Because he's trying like I think we mentioned how like Buñuel feels like in a way he's trying to demythologize religion in a way. Because Nazarin even says to her, because she brings up these whole demons. She says she gets like a pit in her stomach and stuff. And he says, that's not witchcraft or demons. It's a well-known illness. It stems from imagination. And the cure comes from imagination. Plus a healthy life and exercise. Reject sorrow. Pray. You'll get over it. And she keeps thinking that they're demons, though. But, like, yeah, you can see Nazarin almost, like... That's why it doesn't feel like a normal priest movie, because he's almost, like, the most... He's, like, just, like, too rational, you know? In a way, especially a lot of the way he's answering a lot of these questions.
Honestly, yeah.
But yeah, we'll keep going. The next thing now they're all together. They run into like a plague that's happening in town. Yeah, it's kind of a sad scene where they see all these like dead bodies and stuff everywhere. Like a depressing shot. We just see like a girl like just like walking as she's like carrying a sheet with like dead bodies and stuff, like this church bell and stuff, kind of like emphasizing death. But then it cuts to like Nazarin trying to help this like woman who's like about to die. It's kind of one of the funniest scenes.
Honestly, damn, yeah.
Because it's like we've seen all this death. We think Nazarin's like here to help another woman, you know, who's about to die, and he's like trying to preach to her, and he's like, fuck out of here. You know, he's like, don't you want to go to heaven? And she's like, no, not heaven. She's like, not heaven, Juan. She keeps saying that. He's like, no, you're about to die. Don't you want to go to
God.
heaven? She's like, no, I don't want to heaven. One. And then we think like she's kind of like, it's like hopeless. And then it all just randomly cuts to Juan on a horse, like right
So the fact this name's Juan too.
Yeah, I
is hilarious.
know.
But
Not having Juan.
like, I mean,
Wait, what?
I don't know. It's just funny. It's just funny. Juan.
The way she's saying it. But anyway, yeah, the guy. Then we just like cuts to him arriving, and it's like, it makes like Nazarin kind of look like dumb in that moment because she's
especially because like
she
like,
got her hope.
really like if you're about to die, of course you're gonna want to see your loved ones more than a priest. At least most
I think
people.
that's what it sounds like.
Pretty much everyone.
Yes.
I feel like.
But like he's like trying to convince her to like that's what
Yeah.
he needs, which just makes it even funnier. No?
It's just like
she's
like,
saying no,
trying to keep the attention of a dying person.
Yes.
It's like
that's why it makes it funnier when like one actually shows up and they're
Yeah.
like, "Guy, get out," and they have to get out after that. But yeah, they keep walking. This is where we see Ujo the dwarf for the first time. He's like hanging from a tree and like kids are like
Yeah.
beating him.
does he have any other dwarves in his movies?
I don't know. He might.
It's like like if he
Flea
doesn't,
has some for sure.
Fellini, yes. I mean the circus he has.
Yes.
But it's just like I feel like it's like he's very Buñuel. It's a great tool for Buñuel. Midgets or
Yes.
dwarves. That might sound weird, but it makes sense.
No, but it makes sense. Like literally with the scene where like we see her and basically Chrono, what he calls the whore and the hunchback. This
Yeah.
relationship, this relationship idea, this like as Maxop said, this like contrast between these two. Like I think I mentioned with Los Olvidados where just because people are like lower class, different.
Yeah.
Or I forgot. Just because the damned, but yeah, the young and the damned. Just because all these people are the damned doesn't make them the same.
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
And like this, like we get through their relationship, this idea of like just the way they talk and stuff. Like they kind of hate each other, but they like each other at the same time.
Yeah, like love and hate isn't like they aren't like as opposite as we seem.
Yes, especially with their relationship.
Yeah.
That's why I think Maxwell kind of sees like the beauty with their love in a way. But yeah, then we see basically the next kind of major thing in the movie is we see the guy who basically the demon for Beatrice. I forget his name. I think his name is Pinto.
Yeah, Pinto.
Yes. Of course, Blade remembers. No, we see Pinto's come back, and he's basically kind of jealous. You can see he's jealous now because she's following Nazarin and stuff. But basically, he tells her, "If you don't come back, I'm gonna like blackmail you and basically get you guys in trouble and stuff like that." And she, like as she's leaving, this is where this idea of him being the demons comes into play because as he's leaving her, she says, "Let me be good, Pinto." But yeah, but then we cut to I think it's back to them. Are they in prison at this point?
I don't know.
They got arrested shortly after that Pinto thing, so...
No, it's like right after this. So like, honestly, it's weird because the scene almost feels like a kind of like Garden of Gethsemane scene in a way because we're seeing them like eat. They're at like another campsite at night. And I like I was gonna read some of these quotes because first he tells them because night carries yesterday's sorrow and the hope and joy of a new day. That's what death is like, joyous and sorrowful. Joyous because it frees us from life's chains, and sorrowful because we love our flesh and it hurts us to leave it. And just that contrast, he's kind of like, he's trying to be honest with them about what death is and stuff. And then she's talking to him like how like she's struggling with these demons inside. She doesn't know what to do and not. And she asks, "I was about to go with him, and I don't want to go, Father. Can you explain that?" And he says, "It's a bad passion, child. Mortal flesh avoids domination. What can I do to kill that weed, Father? Love, not only one thing or one single human being, but all of God's creation."
Yeah.
And I think like, yeah, just like I said, like that's like that kind of Christ-like love in the middle of Christianity is kind of like the contrast that Christianity struggles with.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love this moment. I was trying to find the quote. It might take me a second because I lost it. But like Ritu Ghatak, this is like one of his favorite moments in a film.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this like moment of them talking.
I don't even know what directors Ghatak like love the most.
Have you seen any of his movies?
No, I've seen River Called Tigers.
Oh, okay. No, but I can see why. Like this kind of like this moment of like. Just it feels like heavenly moment in a way, just for a moment, but it's like. It's not through like camera techniques or anything, you know. It's only just like through conversation. It's like at night. It just like feels very poetic, but very simple at the same time. I don't know how to describe it, you know.
That's just how I feel about Buñuel.
Both like they are both very. I would call it like rough realism in a way. I don't know how that could describe it.
No, I see what
you're
saying. I know what you're talking
like rough
about.
poetic realism.
Like
you know?
I mean,
they're very poetic, but like on purpose, they're not trying to be too perfect. Like the way they use their camera techniques and stuff like that.
like kind of like the French poetic realism.
Yes,
thing. Like,
I would say something like that. Yeah,
Right.
even them, they feel like very technical, where like both of them don't seem as much.
Okay.
I don't know, it's hard to describe. But I know like Buñuel was one of his favorite directors, so maybe I'll find out at the end by the time. But there's just one more thing that he talks to them about, where they're saying because they know the police are coming. She says we should flee, and he says, "Flee, thieves flee, not those who give everything to people in need. I know that due to our humble condition, human justice will not care for us, but the divine will not forsake us." And like even at this point in the movie, he still has that kind of belief of, like at least he understands that human justice is not going to save them at this point. You know, like he's given up hope in that, but he still seems to have that belief of, for some reason, the divine is going to save them. You know, and then. This is where he says it's like one of his favorite moments, where like we see her just like lay on his shoulder, and she says, "I'm very tired, Father," and we see like this caterpillar like walking across his hand, and it kind of just like stays for a moment there.
Snail.
Or is it snail?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, but yeah, he just really loves that moment. But then yeah, that's why I said it's kind of like it reminds me like it has like Gethsemane vibes a little bit, because like the next scene is like Ujo coming and leading like all these men that are coming to arrest them. But the guy says they're not arresting Nazarin, only the women, which is like the opposite of a Jesus movie. That's why it's kind of funny too, because like you would think they're coming for Nazarin, but they're only coming for the other two and not for him. Yeah. They basically just kick him over and stuff. And this is why I say it feels like Gethsemane way too, because they kick him over and then Kronos starts like trying to attack, to like protect him the same way like I think it's Paul in the Bible. No, not Paul. It's Peter that like cuts off the ear of the guard as they're trying to take him and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, that kind of leads us to they're all in prison and stuff, where there's honestly just a good side moment where we see like we're kind of getting this like what a country in a weird way like what a countryside prison would be like in the first place, or like a traveling prison, because we're seeing all these people just on the side, all chained up one by one, just like eating on the side of but they're like kind of happy, but it's just like a good like little moment of like. I just never thought about that, you know, like how just like this one guy.
Prisoners.
Yeah, how do you transport prisoners back then and stuff? It's just like this one guy with a gun at the front of the line. You know?
It's like follow the leader, like line.
Yeah, but
it's like kindergarten when they have like that whole line thing, like rope thing or whatever.
No, yeah, no, it doesn't feel like that. But this is where Maxov mentioned earlier, where there's like that really sad shot of as the prison line is like walking away. We see like the dwarf kind of just like trying to keep up, but he can't. He just like gives up and like waves in the background. But yeah, so it's kind of crazy. Like this is all this like is like last 30 minutes of the movie. Like there's so much that happens in this movie. It's crazy for an hour and a half movie. But yeah, basically we see I think they're stopped at a new place now, and we get like a scene where Beatrice's mother is basically telling her that she loves Nazarin like God. Like she's basically loving it. She's in love with her like a man.
Yeah.
And that kind of just like makes her go crazy again, because she thinks she's kind of like gotten out of that in a way. So the way just being told like she's just obsessed with a new man in a way is like kind of like makes her.
That's what makes her go back.
Yes. You think so? Yeah, I think so.
I mean, she goes back to Pinto.
No, she does. Yeah.
That's what made me think.
I think that's why
something like that.
Yeah. No. But yeah, then we get like I think this is where they've already split up at this point, because then we see the Nazarin, he's alone like with all the guys in the prison, and this is like it's kind of some of the saddest scenes in the movie where we see Nazarin just like getting beaten up for like no reason by these guys, and this is where we see, like he gets beaten up and he's like in the back, and you see for the first time he's really starting to have doubts because he says, "For the first time in my life, it's hard for me to forgive, and I forgive you. It is my Christian duty. I forgive you, but I also scorn you, and I feel guilty about not knowing how to separate scorn from forgiveness." I think you mentioned that. Like,
no, yeah, that's why.
yeah,
That's like before, because that's one of my favorite parts. Like, it's at the very end, obviously, but it's one of my favorite parts of the movie. Like, what's the difference between scorn and forgiveness? Because a lot of people forgive scornfully too.
Yes.
Like, because they're like, "Oh, I forgive you."
Yes.
And it's like, I'm not asking for forgiveness. Okay.
Yes.
So why are you forgiving me?
Honestly,
and that's what this guy is basically also doing. It's like, what do you? It's the classic example of like, what do you tell a person that's not a Christian that they're doing something wrong?
Yeah.
If you don't if you don't have anywhere else to base your beliefs off besides the Bible, this person's not gonna care.
Yes.
He's not asking for forgiveness. He doesn't like you, so he doesn't care that he's doing this shit to you.
Yes. And like it feels like that's like the whole movie in a way.
Yeah.
But this is like we see like a physical beating of it. It's like almost like drives him to a point like where he like kind of realizes it in a moment, you know, where it's like
because whenever a lot of people believe that forgiving someone, you can't do that from a bad place. Furthest thing from the truth.
Well, and especially since you like even you want it to be like, okay, at least in the long run, if I do enough good deeds, or like it'll win out for me in the long run.
Yeah.
And it kind of seems like like in a normal movie, that's what we'd learn in this. Like by the time we're getting to these last moments, we'd kind of learn that in a way. But this one's almost the opposite because we see him start to talk to the guy that comes and saves him from getting beat up even more, and they have like a really like honestly one of the best conversations in the movie where Nazarin says, "Would you like to be good?" But he says, "Yes, but how?" And he says, "All you have to do is say, I want to be good, and truly determined to be good. You'd like to change your life." And then the guy asks him, "But would you like to change yours?" And he says, "How?" And the guy says, "Look, all I do are bad deeds. And what good is your life? You on the good side and me on the bad side. Neither of us are much good at all." And I love that. It's like, in a way, like that you can tell, like the way when after Nazarin says that, it like cuts to like a close up of him really thinking about that idea of like. Or like, because I think like even if all these good deeds, he still feels like they're for some purpose. Yeah. You know, that he feels like he's like making a difference in a way. You know, or at least he wants to believe that. Yeah. But this guy's like, basically, what does it matter? You know, like good deeds, bad deeds. It kind of like we're both here in the same prison. You know,
that's why I think it's. That's why I said it was kind of pessimistic at the very beginning. I mean, it feels pessimistic sometimes, but it's like he has pride that he doesn't realize. Basically,
I think so.
I think there are moments he realizes he has pride.
Yeah.
He has pride because it's like he doesn't want to become this messiah figure for these people, and whatever he's healing the young girl.
Yes.
But the rest of the movie, he's doing things, and these things that he's doing, it's like a lot of people don't do this just because they're doing it because it either makes them feel good. Or because it makes them feel like they're actually accomplishing something in the world, like it stokes their ego almost, which is hard to separate who's doing it for the right reason, and the wrong reason. Which in some ways, the only way I figure that out is by going through some shit like Nazarin did in this movie. So, and I think that's what he realizes toward the end is maybe he had more pride than he assumed.
Like, especially what I've kind of been making this point throughout is like Buñuel wants to just keep that idea of mysterious or ambivalency, this idea of not knowing, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, even if you do the right thing, if you're for sure, you know you're doing the right thing, you know, if you're for sure it's for the right reason, like, you've already messed up in a way, you know, because life will just prove that wrong, in a way. But yeah. So we see, like, the next morning, the priest is kind of like, I think someone else comes to visit him and kind of offers him a way out and says...
It's like another priest, isn't it?
Yeah, it's another priest. Yeah. We're basically trying to convince him to be normal, kind of. Because the priest says something where I've been making this point the whole episode where the priest says, "To make you see that your habits contradict those of priests, your ways confront the church which you claim to love and obey." And that's the whole thing with Nazarin, right? His ways are also confronting the church, and that's what makes him like a true kind of like he doesn't fit on either side, you know.
That's what makes him the Jesus figure.
Yes, in a way, yeah. And like just for why Buñuel finds him interesting is because he contradicts the church, you know. Yeah. But yeah, so then we get one of the kind of you could read it as pessimistic or optimistic, because I know it's hard initially. It's I would see it as pessimistic, where we see Beatrice. She ends up with this guy that's been her demons the whole movie, but it seems like she chooses in a way that's like. She's kind of choosing normal, you know, like she kind of realizes like she was worshiping the Nazarin guy almost in the same way, you know, like with this obsessive, like worship, you know. So like her choice. I'll just read what Robert Hammond says. He says, "Can we call such ending to?" Because Nazarin was based on a play, so that's why he kept saying play. But he says, "Could one call such an ending to a play a pessimistic one, a cynical one? Of course not. In the final scene, Beatrice passes on a wagon with her lover she had dreaded and from which she had fled, seeking comfort and helping Nazarin. She has married him and has passed into a life of dutiful love to a man who loves her, albeit brutishly. This attenuated happiness has at least come from Nazarin's life. True, it is something like an elephant giving birth to a mouse. This is better than no birth at all. The creation of the universe to produce the speck called man is not without analogy."
Sure.
I love that. Like, I mean, it's better than nothing, you know? Like, she learned something. Because that's what he says. Like, she learned something from Nazarin's life itself, you know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Is this like? Can we find this? Is this perfect world that we're searching for even possible? You know, especially in this world, I don't think so. But yeah, then we kind of get this last scene, the actual last scene of the movie, where Nazarin's back on the road. You know, nothing's really changed.
He's not with everyone.
He's not with everyone. Yeah, he's lost the other two. But a woman comes and tries to give him a pineapple, and you know, cause we mentioned the charity quote earlier, where he's not embarrassed by that. In a way, and this time he kind of rejects it. He starts walking, then he comes back, takes it. But that kind of doubt, basically, usually a movie starts with doubt, right? And then you kind of come to the non-doubt at the end.
Yeah.
But this movie is the opposite, where he seems very sure of
true.
himself. But the ending is like the opposite. You know,
I
that's
think this is where the
doubt.
most optimistic point in the movie comes, though, because with him accepting the charity, it's at least to me, it was him realizing the pride that he had within himself. Like, he actually visualized it after he rejected it the first time. I was like, what am I doing? And then he's like, what was the line? Like, may God bring blessings back upon you or something
May
like
God
that.
repay you, madam,
Yeah.
I think she says. But let me read, because in the conversation, Max Hobb asked him about the scene. Because I think Luke kind of mentioned this point earlier, like, or one of you guys did, about, like, even if he's trying to help, is he actually helping at all? You know? And is there a difference? So Max Hobb asks him, how can you say your characters are good? And he says, Nazarin is good. He's very good. And then he says, in Galdos, the guy who writes the play, he says, in Galdos he is, but in your version he causes nothing but trouble. And then Buñuel says, you're right, but that's the way I am. And he says, so? And Buñuel says, it doesn't matter. As I see it, Nazarin is a model priest. The problem is the Catholic religion. He's not to blame. And then Max Hobb says, I'm not saying he's guilty. I don't think that a film who's born with a limp or born bad is guilty either. But in your film, Nazarin as well, you don't want to call him bad, but you have to admit he's not exactly good. And then Buñuel says, that's not a problem. He cries for the first time he begins to doubt his faith. He first turns down the old woman's charity, then he accepts her gift. He's not sure about anything anymore. And like Blake said, I think Buñuel kind of agrees, like, that this idea of not being sure about anything is like the opposite of pride.
Yeah,
like, and that's why Buñuel sees it a good thing. With this end, like, in the beginning, he kind of seems sure of himself that he's doing a good thing for the world.
Oh, yeah.
And Buñuel's whole thing is, like, we can never be sure of that, really. You know, even if we're doing the absolute good thing, like, we might be causing some pain to someone, you know. But yeah, that's basically Nazarin. One of my favorite movies ever, honestly. But I've said that about the last few. So.
And you'll continue saying.
Yes, I will. But yeah, we'll probably take a quick break, and then we'll come back with the Milky Way. And welcome back. We're here to continue our Buñuel episode with the Milky Way. I guess we'll just start like usual. What you guys think? Blake, what do you think? We'll start with you.
No, yeah, so we have seen this movie before. It was a long fucking time ago. I didn't remember anything about it, really, besides kind of the look of the overall movie and the kind of general feel of it, how, like, crazy it is. And it really is fucking crazy, like, watching this movie again. I still don't remember the order anything happened in. Like literally nothing.
I feel that's intentional, honestly. Yeah,
it's kind of just random.
Yes, but I do love how he like. I love what he's like doing in the movie. I still don't know exactly everything he's wanting to do in the movie. Like I know one thing, like I mentioned earlier, was just like this paralleling of like Jesus' life with beggars almost, because it feels like in moments he's wanting you to believe that Jesus is a young version of that old beggar. At least in some moments, especially at the very beginning, whenever he's like, "My mom always told me," and then it cuts to the Jesus like not shaving and shit. Like and there are some insane cuts in this movie where it's just like really funny like that. But it's also just like it's just a really funny movie. Like there are just so many moments in this movie where I just bust out laughing just because of what he's basically doing to Christianity.
Yeah,
but
I mean. This movie's interesting, like, cause like it's definitely like a much more surrealist take on religion compared to Nazarin, and honestly, it kind of reminded me of Phantom of Liberty, although I definitely prefer Phantom of Liberty, cause like I don't know, it's just like this one maybe got a little too out of control at points for me, maybe. It doesn't quite flow as well as, but that's like kind of an unfair comparison because like no movies flow as well as like Phantom of Liberty, but like no, there's like a lot of interest, a lot about like I guess critiquing kind of like the religious dogmas like you're talking about with Nazarin. This movie's just insane. Like
No, I think I definitely agree with you. Like, it's a reason why I almost didn't pick this one because it's not necessarily one of my favorites. Now it is, but it is hard to watch at times because exactly for you, like you said, it doesn't flow as well as some of the later ones as we're gonna do. Well, it's interesting. I should say maybe just to give a timeline. So Nazarin came out in 1959. This one came out 10 years later in 1969. And he made 8 movies in between, or 7 movies between.
So this is like he's in his French period basically at this point, because like this is this is like 2 years after Belle de Jour.
Kind of Spanish. This is This is definitely a French movie, but so Nazarin was Mexico, but then he made Fever Mounts at El Pao, The Young One, Viridiana, The Exterminating Angel, Diary of a Chambermaid, Simon of the Desert, Belle de Jour, and then The Milky Way.
Okay.
So.
I mean, there's like Mikhail Bacoli in this movie. And,
yes. This is definitely
the gardener guy. Whatever his name is.
Yeah, we're gonna see him later too. For sure. But it's also interesting because, like, it's definitely harder to watch because it does require maybe more knowledge of the specific, like, to fully appreciate the movie.
Yeah.
You have to have more knowledge about like the specific instances he's commenting on, because as the movie says at the end, all these are like taken directly out of text, either like from the Bible directly or from like ecclesiastical texts about like saints and stuff like that. So that's why that's why I say, like, I think I mentioned last week, like Buñuel in a way is like he's like one of the most religious directors because he's like not religious. Yeah. But it's mainly because he knows so much about it. You know, this movie is like proof of that. Like. I said he loved reading about the lives of saints, but this is proof that he loved the like Christian history. He liked studying
like the iconography. Or
yes, iconography, or honestly, like I was going to mention a little bit, but this idea of the reality of religion. You know, like what actually happened. You know, what was the actual debate? What this movie is mainly about. What I'm going to mention in a moment is like. Why were there heresies? You know, like if you go to a church today, they're not going to really talk about heresy. They're just going to say like they basically believe whatever Jesus believed 2,000 years ago, and like everyone in between were kind of stupid in a way. You know? But like Benoit's more interested like how do these heresies happen? You know, how does like the belief we believe in today even come about? So in that book I've been mentioning with Max Hobbit, their conversations and stuff, he says there are 2 films that he said are the freest he's made in his career. He says one is The Golden Age. That of course we didn't see, but he says The Milky Way is the other one, and he says he mentions 2 reasons why. He mentions both of them have non-linear plots, and then both of them are also the 2 most religious films he's made.
Interesting. Do you read about the religious?
The Golden Age. I need to watch that again, but. A lot of his movies are religious, so it's kind of... But the non-linear one, I mean, it's hard to disagree.
Yeah.
So I think... It's funny he says freest, but in a way, like... There's like a struggle with... the flow away. I think he gets better at,
yeah.
Like Phantom of Liberty kind of has this similar kind of narrative, like very nonlinear narrative to it, but
like it still makes sense. Like
that one,
like, you can
flows
still
a little
fall
better,
away,
it
like
feels
you can like flow with it. Like
to me, I think it's just
the way he just changed everything. I think he just changed everything maybe together better in that movie, but like.
And to me, this one moves a little bit too fast, especially since if you don't know the context as well, you're trying to keep up in a way.
You can just get
but I think if you watch it, especially if you just kind of notice the contrast as he does throughout, or Blake says, like just these random these sudden cuts to like make stuff really funny, or I'll definitely point out a few as we go throughout the movie. But Buñuel says, just to mention kind of a couple of points on the movie before we start. Buñuel says the movie is about, I guess, I don't know, and especially in Catholicism, there's known as 6 great heresies. Throughout the Christian church or throughout the Christian tradition, he says there's 3 big ones: the mystery of the Eucharist or transubstantiation, which is basically like during communion does the body of Christ like become real. The second one is the mystery of the double nature of Christ. So whether the idea of God being Christ is God and Christ is man, we see that also, and then also he's a third big one is the mystery of the Trinity. And then he says the 3 lesser heresies that are also in the movie is the presence of evil, or Manichaeism, which is kind of like a Gnostic sect that happened kind of offshoot of Christianity. And then the second one he says the gift of grace, and then the third one, all the mysteries related to Mary.
Yeah.
And the reason I mention that is if you kind of keep those in mind, you basically see all of those throughout the movie, kind of just popping up. And it's just so funny, like, a lot of Buñuel is known as, like, he's the atheist director in a way, like, he's just so anti-religion, but, like, there's, like, certain atheists that, like, know nothing about religion, and that's why they're atheists in a way, but, like, he's almost, like, he just knows so much about religion, like, even throughout his career, like, just the idea that he made this film was, in a way, just, like, to prove that he knew so much about it. But the reason why, I kind of want to point out why Buñuel was interested in heresies is still this idea of mysteries, like in a way why the church or a institution or social structure might not like a heresy in the first place, because it makes you doubt, like, and that's what Buñuel likes about the heresies, and like I think that's why he kind of finds there are little moments where you see he almost like likes the people just because they're willing to kind of doubt whatever structure at the time, even if they're like kind of stupid, even if the actual heresy is stupid.
Yeah.
Just like he kind of finds like he finds a hope, like he finds a good almost just that they're willing to doubt whatever structure it is, But there's this one guy named Oswaldo Capriles. He wrote a review on the Milky Way, and he calls basically this movie, The Milky Way, is a dialectical relationship between the dogma of the church, and the degradation of those dogmas, which are called heresies. Yeah. I think that's an interesting way to look at it. Is like the idea of a dogma just becoming degraded is a heresy in a way. If you see the idea start to fall apart, that's when heresies start to form. It's like when people don't trust the institution in a way.
Yeah.
And that's why I think he kind of jumps throughout all this time, because it's like he's kind of trying to show like this happens throughout. It happens all over the place. These people kind of questioning their structures, even if nothing leads to it. Leads from it, like,
I mean, heresies. So many heresies spawn religions that still last today. So I mean, not like branches of Christianity, like they were branded heretics. Also,
yes.
like
yes.
I mean, it's just they ended up surviving, but
yes.
a lot didn't also. But that's the reason why the church hated them.
Yes. Or this idea of like what is a heretic? Like they could be called a heretic at the time, but then later on they'll be anointed as a saint. After history,
or they can be called saints, and then later on, because of writings,
yes. No, honestly, yes.
And then they're
yes.
in their grave again.
No, yeah. And that guy Oswaldo Capriles, he makes another point that Buñuel judges religiosity, but that judgment is never a metaphysical one. It is a judgment arrived at through a constant confrontation with reality. Hence the previous remarks on reality in Buñuel's film. So basically, this idea of like he's not really ever commenting on like whether religion is true or God is real or whatever. He's trying to analyze like where has this interaction really just happened on Earth or like with reality itself, Yeah. And that's why there's like a few moments where they're still like very mysterious on whether like religion is actually, or like God, there's actually a God in this movie or whatever, but to me, like, yeah, he's more judging about like the people that just use God, you know, and like how I said at the beginning where Buñuel says the God created by man is the spirit of evil. I think that's kind of what this movie is more about in a way, like the heresies are not good in themselves, but they're almost good just because they're questioning that kind of God that's been created by man. But then I think you also mentioned how both these movies are road movies, and Maxov does mention how basically he saw the Milky Way as kind of a series of gags without trying to show anything. Anything specific, really.
I guess, I mean, that's just like, because both the movies last week were also road movies.
Yes.
So I guess Buñuel just like loved kind of just like that structure.
Yes, no, he definitely does on purpose.
Like, yeah.
It's like this idea just to like present stuff without it necessarily saying this is what it means, you know, in the greater narrative. Because like a road movie just explains itself.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to explain the narrative more than that.
Yeah.
Well, and like we said, at least with Nazarin and with this one, it fits just the type of movie it is. I mean, they're literally traveling a pilgrimage path. This movie, so at least one story we follow is so.
I mean, and it ended up being like kind of a fake pilgrimage path.
Yes, a fake pilgrimage
for no reason, but and this that kind of does lead us to the movie. We kind of get a narration of they're basically they're kind of giving us I guess what the Milky Way was also known as like the road for the city of Santiago de Compostela, which was a pilgrimage, I guess, was popular that was in Spain, where they would
John's Way or
St. James Tomb.
St. James Tomb.
Yes. He also gives some background, but apparently, like the tomb was hidden in the 16th century. It was found in the 19th century again. Basically, giving us giving us the actual narrative of the movie, I guess, in a way, is they're on this road to, which is crazy because like it only comes back towards the end in a way, but then what. I think this was off. This was not on the podcast, but we were talking about how the Straub and Hulot kind of mixed historical settings with like cars and modern settings. Yeah, we kind of get this in like a funny way right from the beginning.
Literally, going into this movie, I thought this was going to be a straight historical movie, and then like all of a sudden, I just see cars on the road.
That's like, and they're like pointed out on purpose too.
Yeah, like
that's why I like
because like the poster and header on Letterboxd literally looks like a straight historical movie. Yeah. But I guess it is similar to like Othon in that way.
I haven't seen Othon, but yeah, I remember you saying that, so that's the kind of stuff I had. Like,
very similar.
He's trying to make this clash more kind of on purpose in this one, like, because at least these characters are like almost like time independent. You know, they kind of they don't exist even in this one time really. It's kind of funny how they.
Well, it helps you bring the ideas forward too. Like,
I think he's kind of making like almost like a slight point how like. In a way, the beggar is almost the best person to almost change times to, because like they kind of fit in everywhere, more than any other person. Like it's kind of funny. There's like a point later on in the movie where it's one of the best scenes where they like meet death, and like it ends with him taking the shoes and stuff. But like in the very next scene, because his shoes are too nice, he has to like cover them up and stuff. It's so funny. But yeah, we see them like walking on the side of like the highway. We see it's like just this random like guy in a suit walks up to them and tells them. Do you remember what he says?
Yes,
I forgot.
He's like, it was something about like go marry a prostitute and name your first child. I don't remember.
You're not my people.
Yeah, this is the point of the movie. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
He's like, the other guy's like, no more mercy. No more mercy.
Like, what?
Apparently, these are two.
Like, what are we doing here?
Apparently, these are two passages from the Bible. Like random passages.
Oh, okay.
From this review I read, they're from Jesus' conclusion to the parable of the talents, Matthew 25, and God's instructions to Hosea 1, from "You're not my people, no more mercy." I don't know why Buñuel picked them, but I guess they're just like commandments in the Bible, like at some point. So I don't know why exactly.
It's just funny.
But this is like after that happens, that guy walks away from them, and then. We get the first cut to Jesus from what Blake said. The guy, they're like talking. Yeah, it makes you think that this guy is a young Jesus.
This guy's Jesus.
Except for we see them in the same scene with Jesus.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Yeah, it didn't really. Yeah, sometimes.
But I can actually.
No, because it's just so funny. Because he's like, oh, why do you grow your beard or something like that? And he's like, well, my mother told me, and then it just cuts to Jesus, like shaving, like that.
First it cuts to his mother working.
Yeah,
it doesn't even cut to Jesus. She's like working, and then it like pans to also Jesus like working as a carpenter. No, but that's kind of point he's trying to make. Is like, even if he's not directly saying this guy was Jesus younger, he's like at least trying to get in your head that Jesus was a man in a way. He's trying to emphasize that point more than the Jesus is God aspect.
Yeah.
And we'll see. I'll point out a few
Jesus
different
would have
times.
been a man. He would have been closer to a beggar than he would be
Yes.
to any of the other people we see, to the priests or anything that we see in this movie.
Yes. And we'll see a few different scenes where we kind of get the Jesus man moments that are like honestly really great. But yeah, then it shows Jesus. Basically, just a quick scene of like it's so funny just from the fact that in almost any movie with Jesus, he's going to be the main character.
Yeah.
Like it's almost impossible not to do that. You know?
Well, I guess Rosling I mean,
it's called the Messiah.
He doesn't treat him
called
like
the Messiah.
okay, but the camera doesn't treat him.
Yeah,
as
that's
the main
different.
character.
Okay, yes,
Like,
he's trying not to, but it's still like his vibe, his influences over the whole movie. You know?
yeah, I guess
It's still his story.
Yeah.
But this one is like. Is it like it just
Yeah.
cuts, it's like almost like used to just tell this quick story about the beer story because it's like and then it cuts back to the two guys walking again. They're walking. They see like a kid on the side of the road who's like bleeding. I don't know exactly why this kid's here, but
He's just there.
Yeah.
Why is
I
anything?
still don't
Why is
know.
anything here, Danny?
Yeah.
because it's so random. It's like
Why are we
this like
here?
kid that's like bleeding. All of a sudden gets up and he's the one that's able to stop the car for them.
It's
so
He like
funny,
raises
too.
his arm. He's the one that stops the car. They get in. They start driving. They're like, okay, fine. The guy starts to starts to sleep, and then the guy like almost like sees him start to sleep and gets mad, and then he just gets
Well,
out.
I
And makes him
thought,
go
to me, it was like it was what he was saying because he was like, "My God, my God, my God," as he was about to as he was about to go to sleep, and the guy like slammed on his brains.
Damn. Okay. I was just thinking because he was like annoyed that they were arresting or something. I don't know.
know.
Either way, it's funny. Like right when basically right after they get in the car, they have to get out.
Literally right after.
But then it just random. It cut. This is like this is like one of the most random cuts in the movie because it's like just totally new character. This is what I'm saying. Where this is where probably where the flow feels a little uneasy is like we're just introduced to brand new characters.
Dude,
in
it's
this
like
scene. It's like this. I think he's a general or something. It's like a general and a priest.
I
think.
thought it was like a policeman or something.
Police.
Like that,
maybe it's a policeman. Yeah, some guy, some authority figure,
Yeah.
a priest. I think that's the main point of it. It's supposed to be like two authority figures. They're talking about whether miracles are real and everything. And this is where like the first heresy comes up about transubstantiation. I think the priest is on this. I honestly forgot what side the priest is on. Oh yeah, the priest is on. Obviously, he's a Catholic, so he's saying like it's actually real. The Calvinists and others are the ones that only see it as a symbol. But he's saying basically, it's weird because this whole time I've been saying Buñuel loves the mysterious, right?
Yeah.
The other guy is like, I just can't conceive of it.
Yeah.
The idea of transubstantiation. The priest is like, that's all the more reason to. Credo quia absurdum. Religion without mystery is no religion at all. To sum up, heresies which attack a mystery may seduce superficial sprite, but they will never succeed in obscuring the truth. So this guy's almost like in a way like saying both things. Like he's saying that religion without mystery is no religion, but then he's saying heresies with attack, like almost like, but he's still saying heresies are bad in a way. Yeah. And the reason I'm pointing out this contradiction because it's like this priest is like he's supposed to be an authority figure that like we're supposed to trust, and then like right after a few like minutes later, he all of a sudden says, "I have a sudden feeling the other people were right." I think he says a Pactiliers or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's just so funny, like we think of priests as the people that have the especially we grew up religious. I'm sure all three of us did. So this idea of like priests just doubting themselves or all of a sudden changing their mind about a whole doctrine is just like funny.
Yeah.
Like especially if they're just preaching to a bunch of people, and then all of a sudden they're like, wait a second, I believe the exact opposite.
Well, I think what happens after is like what Buñuel's trying to get at with that. It's like this is just kind of how they are. Like this, they like almost like priests belong in mental asylum.
Yes, because he gets offended that the guy doesn't agree with his new position after immediately changing his mind. Like that's another thing with the
He's like,
authority in
does someone
general.
contradict him?
Yeah, and then he's like, and then it cuts. This is where I was like, this is like insane efficiency. Where we see this guy like getting mad, and then all of a sudden it cuts to an ambulance coming from the outside. Yeah, he throws the thing,
Throws the coffee
on him, and then it cuts to an ambulance on the outside. Just like implying that we're supposed to know that this guy was taken.
Yeah.
Like, but he's like, did you disagree with him? Oh, you must have contradicted him. No, that's all.
Because we just
Yeah, but
figure
he's
out
definitely making that
he
point.
escaped from mental asylum and he's just here.
No,
no one questioned it because he was a priest. So.
Yes. Damn. Yeah. No, that's actually a good point. I forgot to mention because we'll see a few times where they get just questioned for being like
for being beggars.
Yeah. For no other reason than that. But then like people that should be questioned way more.
Well, they
like,
weren't
not
even allowed in
questionable.
the inn because they're there whenever the cop and him are talking. They weren't even allowed in until like they let them in. So
yeah, and then they get kicked out too after.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Well, they get kicked out because they ask a question. I can't remember what question did the beggar ask. He asked something to the priest, and the priest said, "That's a stupid question." Or something like that. It's like, get out! I've had enough of you.
Oh, he says, "What becomes of Christ when Christ enters the stomach?" That's a funny question. It kind of reminds me of like one of the questions like the women were asking the priest in Nazarin. You know, like like if you think like they don't like a certain priest like they don't want you to take it too literally. You know, but at the same time they're telling you to take it literally.
No, honestly, like the way he like mocks priests like here is like honestly similar like how Flea does it. Like
okay, like
just going all like. Just going like...
Just like making them seem like madmen. Or
in a way, yeah, that basically. Like, I mean, the scene in Omnicore, like, when he's like...
These are kind of creepy, though. I mean, we get some creepy ones in this one, too.
They're also kind of, like, insane in a way.
Yeah,
like,
no, I see exactly what you're saying, though. It basically seemed like... that's why I was saying the similar backgrounds they must have had, because those were, like, their authoritative structures when they were young, you know? So that's what they remember. So you kind of see, like, the kind of stupidity when you get older.
Yeah, like I love when isn't Amacore is like Saint Peter weeps when you touch yourself.
Oh, damn, yeah. That's what I was saying about the what Buñuel was saying about the clash between the erotic and like the sensitive. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god, Amacore's so good.
No, that's when it's so funny. That's where he starts telling about all his dreams and stuff.
Yeah.
Damn. But to go back to the movie, we're like basically they're like camping outside. This is one of the scenes I still don't understand exactly like what's Heresy's commenting on because we see them camping outside. This like random guy comes up to him who starts I think preaching to him in Latin. And like what the fuck's going on? The guy walks away and he's like a shepherd that talks like a priest. And I think they followed him. I don't know if they actually followed him. The camera does. But this guy he like basically goes on to this like weird ritual going on where they say I think it's, if I'm not wrong, it's a Priscillian Gnostic sect that this basically ritual goes on. I honestly don't know exactly.
Sex ritual.
Yeah, it's like some weird sex ritual. Like you think it's like really official, and all of a sudden it cut. Like you don't even see the women at first, because then all of a sudden it cuts the women, and it's like surprising, and you're like, okay, that's why they're here. No, but it spends a lot of time because then like the guy like breaks it up, and then all the couples start making out and stuff, and the priests like go off to the side. It's just like. I think he's just trying to show, like, this is almost like historic, like a documentary almost, in a way. Like, this is what a kind of ritual might have been like, you know? Almost, like, too real. You know, like this demythologizing it in a way.
Yeah.
But, no, because, the reason why I mentioned Manichaeism, Buñuel said that was one of, like, the heresies, was Manichaeism was, like, this idea of evil and, like, Gnosticism, or what it brought to Christianity was... Like, it said, like, the spirit of evil was, like, way more entrenched in the world. So, like, it was basically all over the place, kind of, this kind of thing. I still don't know too much about it, but I think that's what Buñuel is trying to say here. Like, that's why a lot of the... that's why they were willing to do more rituals like this and stuff. But, yeah, we go back to them at the camp again. This is where I was saying it's, like... Is it just coincidence, or is there actually like a God? One of those things where they're like camping, and the guy's like they're talking about whether they believe in God or not. The old and young guy, and the young guy's like, I don't believe in God really. And he like walks outside, and he's like asking God to prove whether if he's true or not. Just strike him with lightning right now. And he's like he walks back in, and then immediately after, the lightning strikes like right behind them, like on the house. And then the old guy says, "Imbecile, do you think God is at your disposal?" But he just leaves at that, you know? It still could be random. You know, I think that's kind of the point he's making, because the guy's like, he's even like,
I mean,
see, it wasn't me.
I mean,
like,
similar to when, in the moment in Nazarin, when he's walking away from the person, and like the girl runs up to him. Because we talked about Nazarin, like, that's kind of a similar, like, idea.
Is it just like random?
Yeah,
it seems like just chance, and then they're...
Is it random or is it not?
Yeah. But this one just feels funnier because it's like literally like he's like almost like a comedy, you know. He's like asking to be struck by lightning and
prove you're real. Hit me.
Yeah. Because like in a Buñuel movie, it seems like he would actually get hit too, you know. No, but then it cuts to them going to they're on a train now. It's just like it's so random how they go from like modern to ancient day.
Yes.
Basically, he just doesn't want you to pay attention to that. I think. Like,
Yeah, probably.
maybe like once you get into the scene, he wants you to pay attention to the details. But
Yeah.
like, just like you have to let go of the idea of like you're trying to connect them.
Yeah,
It'll just drive you insane. But honestly, the next big part is like we kind of see them walking for a while. We see them on a train. They get like a donation from like outside of like a modern church and stuff. But then we cut to it's the gardener priest from Discreet Charm.
yeah.
He's like working as like a restaurant manager in this.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like that's why I say like he's still a priest in this.
Yeah.
Basically, he's like the priest in a way. The priest
Yeah,
in
he's
this
like the same
movie.
guy, basically.
Yeah, exactly. He's the exact same guy. And so especially this opening scene where like you can tell he's like the authority figure too, because the other people don't want to question him because like his reason is so like dumb in a way. Because the men are like his like workers are like kind of like they're saying they have doubts about whether God's real and stuff. And they ask, "Do you have any proof? Like, why should we believe in God?" And he says, "The proof's in Psalm 13:1. It's a fool who has said in his heart, there is no God." It's like, okay, that's not proof at all. Like, but that's like a classic Christian thing to do, you know, like just quote the Bible to prove. Like Blake kind of said the same little point. Like, how do you say to a non-Christian, like a Christian will just use like the Bible to a non-Christian? Like, it doesn't work, you know.
Yeah.
No, because the guy says right after, he's like, well, that settles it. But, like, it's like, you can't disagree with the authority figure in a way, you know? You kind of just have to go along with it if you do disagree. But this is where I was saying where, this is, like, the biggest instance of the idea of, like, Buñuel, like, he puts the, you know, especially if you're a person, like I said, most people watching these movies, like, don't believe in God or, like, you know, that's probably true. But I feel like it, especially like at film festival circles and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
So like, he puts like that idea into this scene. Do you remember the scene that he cuts to right after this? It's like this guy who's like it's Piccoli in close up, and he's talking about how barbarous religion has been in the past. You know how terrible it's been. He even says the barbarous law of Christianity, and you're like, oh, okay, he's kind of spitting. And then like all of a sudden it cuts to like a close up of a girl in chains,
Okay. Yeah.
like in his prison, and you're like, oh fuck. No, but then no, because apparently it's a scene from a Mark de Sade novel. De Sade is like the guy that did what was Pasolini's last movie? Salo. He wrote that.
Okay.
I think that was like one of Buñuel's favorite authors too, because like this theme is in like this idea of like the really dark sides of man is like a huge theme in his movies, in his books, obviously. But apparently this scene, like this is from one of his I think books or plays, but so like we get like like I say, like this kind of liberal point of view from this guy. He's like saying how barbarous Christianity is. Then it cuts to this girl and like basically changes the mood of the whole scene, like right in that one cut. Because then all of a sudden he starts saying to her, if your God exists, I hate him. And she's like, yes, God exists. And then it's just like one of the most darkest moments in a Buñuel movie, because the implications there, like, you know, what he's gonna abuse her basically. But then the camera just kind of slowly pans out and it cuts back to this religious priest saying like God is real again. So you're like, oh damn, I don't know what to believe anymore, you know, because yeah, like just like how Christians say God, just because like if you believe in God, you're a good person in a way, you know. The inverse is not always true, you know, where someone might be like, just because you don't believe in God, that doesn't make you a good person now, you know. In a way, a lot of like evil is almost like independent of it, in my opinion. But I think that's what Buñuel's kind of saying. Like, just because someone has the right opinion doesn't make them a good person, in a way.
It's kind of like a hard concept to wrap your head around, in a way, which I think makes it really interesting. Like, like, why is that?
Yes, I think that's what Buñuel's kind of saying. Like, the world is a hard thing to wrap your head around.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, things happen that are contrary to you all the time. But yeah, that's what I was saying. It cuts back to this now, like at least in my opinion, it makes me see the priest a little differently. You know, after we've just seen this like really dark guy, like you're like, okay, this guy's not as bad. You know, he's like still like really nice to all these employees and stuff. No, but this because they keep asking him questions, and he's like he starts talking about heretics and stuff, and then one of them asks like, in a way, at least in terms of when Jesus is involved, this is basically Buñuel's theme of the movie. One of them asks, could he laugh and cry? He must have walked like everyone else. And then it cuts to maybe one of my favorite moments in the movie where it cuts to Jesus like running from a distance. He's like sprinting.
Okay.
And then he like sprints to the foreground where all the disciples are waiting. And he's like, and then someone says, we're late to preach. He's like heavily breathing and stuff. It's just like you just don't think of Jesus like being late for something, you know, like being tired from sprinting. It's just like, you never see these in like...
You kind of just like see him as like some like...
You see him as an icon more.
Like,
immortal,
icon.
Yeah. So like just the idea of like Jesus like sprinting like because he's late for a sermon or something. Yeah. And then he says, I'm hungry. Like,
you like never see
also,
like
exactly. Because Buñuel...
And don't the disciples say something about like, well, why don't you just like why don't you perform another miracle?
Oh, yeah.
Damn.
No, because Buñuel, I want to say, he says this in The Mind Last Sigh, his autobiography. He says, quote, he wanted to show him, Jesus, as an ordinary man, laughing, running, mistaking his way, preparing to shave, to show, in other words, all those aspects completely alien to our traditional iconography. And that's what I was saying. Like, he's really trying to emphasize, at least with the moments where we get Jesus, these kind of Jesus as man aspects, you know?
Yeah.
Like, being tired, being hungry, you know, as he says, making mistakes, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's almost like anti-religious to say, like, if he said in a church, like, people would get offended in a way. But
It's a heresy.
Yeah, exactly. But see, that's why but Buñuel's not negative about it. That's why it makes it like, it almost makes you like think of Jesus in a different way. At least it does for me. But then it cuts back to Jesus. This is like where we get this is where it feels similar to Rossellini's, where the way he uses miracles in his movies.
Yeah.
Where it just mentions the miracle, where like, Jesus, we need wine and stuff.
Yeah.
But it doesn't show the miracle. It doesn't.
It'll like start to show it and then just like cut away basically.
Yeah. Or like the miracle's only done through references through other people. Kind of thing. Yeah.
Definitely.
Honestly, it could be
Because like I remember in like the side like when he, like Jesus feeds the 5,000, it's like you start to see it and you start them starting to hand out the bread, but then you just like he cuts away and never mentions it again.
Yeah, so it could just
basically.
be like nothing. Like nothing happened. But yeah,
it's crazy.
Basically, you can take it either way.
Pretty
like
much.
if you're watching this as an atheist, you're like, okay, there was no miracle there.
Yeah,
you move on. But then if you're a Christian, you're like, okay, there was obviously the miracle there.
Yeah, you're showing it really happened.
Yeah.
It's also funny though because it's like you could read it as he's done this before, so the mom just like do it again. Because at least whenever the mom like asked him the first time, she's like, Jesus, get some wine.
Well, I know in the Bible, I don't know if they mentioned this, but I know in the Bible this is the first miracle.
No, yeah.
I don't know if he's probably done it in private and stuff.
No, I'm just saying in this scene it feels like the mom is like he's done this before almost because like Jesus, get the wine.
That. She's like so casually basically.
Yeah, it's just so casually. Like she's not even worried about them being out.
No,
she's like, Jesus, go get the wine.
Yeah. No, because I think he might mention like it's maybe not my time, but he's like okay. I think it's basically implied that he does it, but I don't know. At least the story anyway. But then it cuts to back to the restaurant. This guy, he's telling them about the Council of Nicaea, which was a major council basically deciding like what books were going to be in the Bible and which weren't. But that's when I think we might have mentioned Nazarin, but we kind of see it in both where we see these two beggars. We see the two main leads or the beggars come up to the restaurant asking for help. Like right after this guy's been talking about Christ and everything, and he's like, "Get out of here!" You know, let's go. But yeah, I think like it's so fun. Like I really think that whole restaurant scene is just for this scene to happen, for them to get rejected after this.
Joke,
in a way, just like to get rejected from this restaurant after he's been talking about Jesus to them, the staff the whole time. Because they never get in, like, and I don't think we ever come back to them either. So
I don't think so.
No, this is like one of the most interesting scenes in the movie in a way because it cuts to them back on the road, and they come to this like school, this children's institution. It says on the sign, and like it's like all these kids in a row, and they're all like saying each of the I guess anathemas, which are like I guess rules of the church. They're saying them one by one, and it's like it starts to become catchy. Where after they say a rule, they're like anathema upon them. I don't know what they're exactly saying.
Yeah, very excited about it.
Damn, it's kind of catchy, but it's cut with this guy, like the younger one. He's having like these like random flashback scenes of like I'm pretty sure they're supposed to represent like the May's 1968 protests that were in Paris.
Okay.
Because this movie came out in 1969.
Oh,
and I know Buñuel, like, part of the reason he made this movie was to kind of like, because he's, I know he talks about how he saw that moment in Paris as like a surrealist moment in terms of just like this kind of almost like natural incident of like breaking with convention in a way,
like
you know,
breaking the establishment.
Yes, breaking the establishment, and that's why he kind of wanted to make this movie because this idea of like what like demythologizing religion can allow you to like, you know, break the convention. Because like, and the reason I mentioned with this specific scene is we see him in the flashback shoot the Pope. I think. Okay, I don't know if he actually does actually. Yes, they are shooting the Pope. We see like this. Yeah, they're basically having like a firing squad for the Pope. Yeah. And then he wakes up. He wakes up right after the shooting happens, and the guy next to him was like, "Did you hear a gun anywhere?" Yeah. The old guy right after he wakes up, and he's like, "That's why it confuses you." You're like, "Wait, did that actually happen?" But then he's like, "Is there a shooting range near here?" And he's like, "No, it's it." And then the guy answers, "No, it was me. I was imagining they were shooting the Pope." And the old guy's like, "What? You'll see. You'll certainly see a lot of things, but you'll never see the shooting of the Pope." And I think it's just kind of to point out like that the old person, like, that's the idea of like shooting the Pope. It's like not even really a thing, just that idea, you know, of killing the Pope is like unbelievable, especially
he's
that
like
part of Europe.
He's like a sort. He's not even really like a person. It feels like he's he's like an icon.
Exactly.
I guess what we're talking about.
Exactly.
He's more of the
exactly.
It's happened before, though. I'm pretty sure.
Literally, yes. But I think he's saying more killing the Pope, like, you know, overthrowing that kind of establishment.
Yeah.
But yeah. But then the way it cuts to this Council of Braga is the fourth. Another girl comes up and says the fourth anathema, which is meat. People who say meat are unclean are bad. Yes. And then it cuts to the guy who's like at this guy who's like the heretic who's saying meat is bad and stuff. And he's saying, but it cuts this council because apparently he's also being burned for saying purgatory is not real, and this is another heresy. But this is after we see this guy get killed. It's honestly one of like the most interesting scenes in the movie because we see the priests that are killing them. We see this young priest all of a sudden like start to doubt, and he says, "The burning of heretics may it not go against the will of the Holy Spirit." And then the older priest says, "It's the secular justice of men that punishes them, not because they are heretics, but for their sedition." And then the younger one says, "But then those whose brothers have been burnt will burn others, and so on, each one believing he possesses the truth. Why these millions of deaths?" And then the older one says, "Do you know what you're saying?" "I don't know, yet you persist." And then he says, "No, I submit, Father." And it's just like this idea of questioning, you know, the authority. Yeah. And the reason why I mentioned this thing also is because I like, even the older priest is saying, it's not necessarily because of their heretics in and themselves, like just because of the belief, but it's because they're questioning the system. Like he's literally admitting that. It's because of sedition, you know, like, and if you have people who question the system, like, the system would fall apart, you know, so it doesn't even matter, like, if the heresy is stupid or not, you know. It's more like, if you say purgatory is wrong, and the system says purgatory is right, people might just start doubting, like, why do I believe the system in the first place, you know. I think that's kind of why he has that, because he even says it's for the secular justice of men. It's the reason he's being burned, really, not even for the religious reason. But yeah, that's kind of why Buñuel doesn't like religion. You know, it's like it's just another structure that keeps things the same. But yeah, to keep going, there's also like, it's honestly one of the longest like holds on a close up of a Buñuel movie is after the younger guy says "I submit," it just like pans to a close up of the older priest just like staring at this guy like suspiciously, like he's like looking at him for like 5 seconds. I haven't counted to. It's like,
I guess he doesn't really hold on.
No,
he
never. It's like very rare.
I never even thought about that. Yeah,
he uses close ups kind of rarely, like just to make a point, because he uses a close up on the girl when she says, "Yes, I believe in God. I believe in God." Yeah. It's like significantly cuts to a close up. And then later on during this scene, when the younger guy is like questioning the authority, it cuts to the same type of close up, and he's like questioning him.
Okay, yeah.
So I think he's kind of using the close up as that kind of like these like little moments maybe of
like connecting them,
or like using them as a way to like say like little moments of questioning the authority at the time, something like that, you know. Yeah. Especially because they're usually with the younger people. But then we get, like I said earlier, one of my favorite scenes in the movie where they meet Death.
Okay.
So do you remember how the scene opens? Where they're kind of on the side of the road.
They're trying to get a ride, and then
They
the
kinda
guy
get a ride.
the guy passes them. And he says, "I hope you get a wreck."
Yes. Well, right before that, though,
Oh, I don't remember.
is the older guy's shoe is broken.
Oh yes.
So he said,
And they're
in
trying
a
to
way,
fix it,
they're trying to fix the shoe, yeah. But then as they're trying to fix the shoe, this car drives by. He's like, "I hope you crashed," and then you hear like a crash like a few seconds later.
Damn.
Yes.
And that's another moment I was like, it's kind of similar to that thunder crash where he's like,
Yeah.
did his words actually have any sway on what just happened, or was it just random? You know.
Honestly.
Yeah, Buñuel just leaves that as a mystery though. But then they come and check on it, and I love this line this Death says because it's like, honestly, I'm about to like if I ever write a character about Death, I gotta steal this line. 'Cause it's amazing. Because they ask him like, what's he's doing there, and the guy says, "I always get in at the last moment." That's so good.
It's so good.
No, but they're like it. Honestly, just like this is like one of his most, I guess you could say, surrealist scenes because like he's like I think he's supposed to represent Death. I'm not even 100% sure because he's like dressed as like a young hipster, I guess. Like, the young hipster in the 70s anyway, or late 60s.
Yeah.
He's like wearing makeup and I think he has an earring or something. But yeah, he's basically like I don't know. There's some weird moments in the movie. Like they're like there's like a sermon playing in the car for some
Yeah.
reason. I honestly I just still don't know exactly how to explain it. I have to read more about it because I don't know exactly all the references he's making here. But anyway, like as the Death kind of the way we know he's like magical because he keeps like appearing. He like just like pops out of the car randomly in front of them. And then as they're walking away, the guy's like, "Hey, why don't you take this guy's shoes over here?" Basically, and that's why I was saying like I love how he sets up the joke from the very beginning of the scene too, where the guy's like his shoe is broken.
Yeah.
To you could say another kind of contrast moment where someone dying ends up being a good thing because now this guy gets new shoes.
Yeah. Damn.
So he ends up leaving the scene with new shoes, but then immediately after it cuts to them in an old time again. So the guy's like, "Wait, you gotta cover up your shoes.
Yeah.
Like they're too nice, you know.
Yeah.
They don't make sense here." Which I love that too. Like a homeless guy gets nice shoes and he can't use them, you know.
Damn. Yeah.
No, but yeah. Now they're back. Yeah, they're back where this is. I think this is where the Jansenist heresy comes, or the heresy of whether Christ is man or not. Or I think they're talking about grace actually. I forget which one. Yeah, they're talking about grace because do you remember this scene? This is where the duel happens.
Okay.
And I think it's kind of just it feels a little Barry Lyndon-esque to me.
Honestly.
Where like the kind of like if you think about like the way duels are usually talked about, they're kind of mythologized, you know. They're kind of seen like romantically in a way.
They're really stupid. Though,
Yes,
like,
yes. Like that's what Barry Lyndon does a great job of.
Oh yeah.
But this one also does a really funny one though too, because they're talking about the doctrine of grace, and I think the Jansenist guy is saying, in the fallen state of nature, inward grace is irresistible. And the other guy's like, dare I repeat that on a more retired spot? And he's like, at your disposal. That's so. To me, it's just funny the idea of like they're fighting about the nature of grace. Like that's just funny,
honestly.
you know, like the idea of they're dueling about grace.
No, it's like
a contradiction.
No, it's like the Doctor Strangelove line, like you can't find here. It's
Yeah,
the war room.
honestly,
like,
yeah. It's like that. It's got that kind of vibes for
honestly.
sure. No, it's so funny because they're like fighting, and honestly, the duel's pretty good. Like the soul fighting's pretty good in it. You know, I'm impressed for
Buñuel action epic. Like,
Yeah,
kind of wish we got.
Honestly,
Action adventure.
well, have you seen Robinson Crusoe?
The what?
Robinson Crusoe.
I don't know what that.
He made a movie called Robinson Crusoe. That's based on a book.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty good.
Okay. Also good.
It's one of his more action movies. But
Like his only one. I guess this one.
yeah, there's that scene in Illusion Travels by Streetcar, you know, and they're chasing him on the.
I guess they also.
Every road movie is an action
Soldados.
movie. Every road movie is an action movie.
Okay. Los Soldados has some scenes of people beating each other up.
Okay, well, so that's better.
And the chicken.
But I love. They're just like saying like. I guess if you knew more about some of these heresies, it would make more sense. But I don't know enough about them yet. But they're like just saying like different opinions as they're fighting, and then that's when it cuts to like as they're fighting, they're talking about free will and stuff too. And then it cuts to the like basically us in this position as we're just watching them. And the older guy and the younger guy, they're talking about whether the young guy's like, what does free will even mean? And the older one says, it means that between two actions, a good and bad one, you can choose. and then but the younger guy's like, but if God created me, He chooses me to do evil, doesn't He? And then basically kind of making the old guy look dumb, and the old guy's like, God's designs are impenetrable. Just basically not answering the question.
Yeah.
But him saying that, and the camera pans to the left, and it shows both the guys that have been dueling. They're like friends all of a sudden. They're like they're just like shaking hands, and it just like almost like proves his point in a way, because he's like, God's ways are impenetrable, and like the two guys we've just been seeing the whole time are just like not fighting anymore.
They worked it out.
Yeah, but we don't even see that.
Yeah.
We don't even see how, right? It's just like mysterious for us. It's like all of a sudden they've been fighting, and it's like, no, all right, we're good. Like, no, I just love that moment too. But then they're back walking. We see a flag of them in Spain, so we know they're close. Honestly, one of Buñuel's most kind of like, I think it's actually like it's like a handheld shot of just like the camera passing along the bridge. It doesn't even cut to them walking, but it just it pans across the bridge the whole time. And the older guy's like, I prefer the Riviera, and he's like, ever been there? And he's like, no, but I've heard. And then the old young guy's like, yeah, but it's strictly for the rich. And it's just like, I don't know, just it's a nice thing, like with the camera just panning across the bridge. It's almost like
I mean, like Buñuel doesn't have a ton of scenes of just like not people in them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's almost like
it's like rare for him.
And a handheld too. I'm pretty sure it's handheld. Yeah, just kind of like a random moment, It's like, I think the point he's trying to make is this guy's like thinking about, he's like dreaming of a place he's never been. Like he's like, the Riviera is even better than this, but I've never been there. But then it cuts to this is where we see it gets a while to get to this point where we're seeing these heretics about the Trinity. Do you remember these two guys? I think he's trying to imply that they're like just like two gay guys, because we see them give their donkeys to two leads, and they go run off in the distance, and we're like, oh, okay, we get what they're doing. but then it cuts to I think like a speech going on or whatever, like with this church, and all of a sudden we see these two guys come in from who we just saw run away, and they're like, the Pope declares the dogma of the Trinity, but God is one and everything. And so they're basically arguing that God is not the Trinity, And this was actually one of the major heresies at the time. Like, yeah, like now if you go to a church, especially in the West, like you'll be taught the Trinity is just like a common thing, but for like hundreds and hundreds of years, it basically wasn't. Like this idea of if Jesus was God, or the idea of man and God, does that even make sense? Let alone Holy Spirit. But that's basically what he's kind of mentioning here. But then we see them. They kind of mention that they yell at, and they get away in time. They run away to the forest, and then we get like another scene that's very surreal in a way, because like we see I think they have like a rosary from something, but he throws it in the tree. They shoot it. That alone feels like kind of like a shot at like Christians that are watching this and stuff. Just like shooting a rosary in close up. But then right after, I think it's not right after. I think they're like about to go to sleep. Then Mary shows up like randomly. Is it a dream? Like,
is this when she's like glowing?
Yeah, she's like glowing.
No, that's crazy. Like,
yeah, because I actually went back and rewatched this, because both guys do see her. They claim to see her.
Okay, yeah.
They're like, yeah, we both see her and stuff. And this one of the guys that shoots her, the rosary earlier. He's like, he gets up and he goes and grabs the rosary from her that he just shot. But the reason I say that is because the other guy after, he's like, oh, it didn't happen. It was just a hallucination. Yeah. But he's like so sure that it happened. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because in the movie's context, it seems like, we're on his side. We definitely saw it happen to him. Because it cuts to a little later when they're in the cafe, or I don't know what you call it, like the inn, when they're all in the inn later. Yeah. And the priest like tells him like, I know it seemed personal to you, but actually these happen all over the time. Like it
happens all the time.
Mary happens to everyone. There's nothing special that happened to you. I just love that.
She's appeared to thousands of people. Well, you're nothing special.
No, also, and we kind of cut to that already, but they're both at this inn already that they run to, and this policeman that also shows up in some later Buñuel movies, like the guy with the huge mustache.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
He's like so suspicious of them. He's like, all right, you have to leave tomorrow though. You can stay the night, you have to leave tomorrow. But then these two guys that have just like committed a heresy and are running on the run, like he's like, all right, you guys are fine, Yeah. But then that's when they start talking to this priest, and This priest is like one of the funniest guys in the movie.
He's
To
so
me.
good.
Just like right from the beginning, where he's like telling him, like where he says that you must not let yourself get in such a state. The Blessed Virgin has appeared thousands of times all over the world. She has performed countless miracles. And then he tells her, I'm pretty sure Buñuel just puts this story in here because he likes this story. Because he has a quote earlier where he says, Buñuel even says he likes Mary more than Jesus. And I think that's why he says the story of this girl that ran away to get married. She ran away from a monastery to get married. Then years later, after she had kids and stuff, she came back. But everyone at the monastery treated her normal because Mary took her disguise all those years and acted like her until she came back. Like, I can't think of any other reason other than just like Buñuel just likes that story. But,
Honestly,
but basically, yeah, he tells that story, but then everyone goes to sleep, and the innkeeper's like, no matter what you do, don't open this door. Like, even for me.
Yes.
This night, which is like, already, if someone tells you, if the innkeeper tells you that, you should probably not want to sleep there.
Yeah,
Like,
And you have to sleep in different rooms.
yeah, he also tells him that too.
It's like
That's
some
also-
horror shit.
Yeah.
What's going on?
But then this is like honestly, let me just say how Buñuel describes it. So Max Ob is like, why is it that when the priest is listening in the hallway, we suddenly see him inside the room, in the scene with the virgin in one bed and the man in the other? And he's like, what? And he's like, why is the priest inside one minute and outside the next? Because the same thing happens to me. Whenever a priest talks to me outside the door, suddenly he's inside my room, and then just as suddenly he isn't. And basically, he's trying to express that feeling in the movie because all of a sudden, there's, like after they come into the room separately, there's like this woman in this bed next to the first guy.
Yes.
And and he's like trying to get closer and stuff. And then all of a sudden the priest comes and starts like talking to him about the Virgin Mary, how she's she's a virgin and everything. Makes them like basically he's trying to get them distracted so they're not singing according to the priest. But yeah, I think
he literally says something like, some people say that even after she conceived, she had sex with Joseph, but those people are heretics. She never did.
They're basically saying, yes, this idea of like treating Mary basically like Jesus.
Yeah.
He says like other saints would say that she had certain faults, but of course they're heretics.
But of course they're heretics.
It's kind of funny. This priest is basically there to kind of like say like. Basically point out that kind of erotic sense of sin clash that I've been talking about, but because I guess I think this was definitely a thing, like Buñuel says, but there were certain people that believed that it was even sinful to have sex after you were married, which is insane. Like,
That's insane, yeah.
I mean, doesn't he uses Paul as an example in this movie because of that?
Yes.
Or
Paul has that famous quote where he says, because he tells them that he's like, Paul says it's good if a man takes no wife. Basically trying to get them to stop having sex and stuff. But, that's where it seems like this priest kind of likes it. What I'm saying, like, Buñuel's at least implying this priest at least likes talking about it. He like knows all these various theories about it. Knows all these details about it. But in a way, Buñuel is like making fun of himself too because he definitely knows about it.
Oh,
yeah. The crazy one, being sin to have sex even in wedlock is just insane. Like, I need to read more about it. I haven't seen I wonder what those sermons were like.
What arguments going out? Like,
I guess that Paul line is probably there, but then he cuts to the other room where we see the other guy there's like an older man in this one, and this is where he's like, can I come into this one? And the older guy just like he just waves his hand like, no, we can't go in. And for some reason he just willingly goes away. I don't know why it's exactly explained, but. He has the old guy after the priest leaves. The old guy has one of the most famous lines of the movie is, "quote My hatred of science and my horror of technology will lead me one day to an absurd belief in God."
oh my god.
I still don't understand exactly like who this old guy's supposed to be.
Me either. But
yeah, I think
I just think it's so funny how one guy has this like attractive young woman and then the other guy has just this old man.
Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, that might be why the priest just leaves right away too.
Yes.
Because there's sexual implications or anything
No sexual
in this room.
implications here.
Yeah. He's like, I'm out of here. I don't know. Maybe that's what he's implying. I don't exactly know for sure. But then there's like a random scene where they're like leaving with they're like leaving and they get caught by this mustache. The cop.
They like stole the ham.
They stole the ham for sure, but the cop they still show the ham and they're like, actually no, the guy gave it to us. And they're like, all right,
we paid for it.
Yeah, they're like, no, okay, you're free to go. I don't know. Basically, it's showing like these cops are stupid. I guess. Like I don't know what other reason why this scene would be there, but we're basically at the end of the movie where they're back on the road. It says they're almost in Santiago. We see the sign, and then we see the the harlot from the beginning of the movie come up across the street to talk to them. And she's the one that tells them actually they just discovered that it's not the body of St. James, but it's actually the body of Priscillian, that heretic that we mentioned earlier in the movie.
I love how it's like said too because they like walk up and they're like, oh, I thought there'd be more people here.
Oh yeah.
And then she tells them that.
Yeah, she tells them that, and then I think it's just kind of funny this idea like this whole movie has been for this purpose to get to the city. The movie ends with them like ending up with a prostitute outside of the city and they never enter. Like, and that's. Well, actually, the last scene is the great one, but basically, in terms of narrative logic, that's how the movie ends. Like, they don't even enter the city, and then the James that they were going for ended up being a heretic. So, I think he's definitely trying to make a point there. But
to me, it's like this journey that people take, this pilgrimage that people take, is literally for no reason. So, like,
especially if your reason is that destination.
Yeah. Well, and it's also like these religions. At their core, sometimes can just be like misleading, or just fake in general. Because this is obviously a fake tomb.
Yes.
Like.
Yes.
So.
No. Yeah. But then, honestly, one of my favorite Buñuel scenes, just in general, is we get like this last scene where we see two blind men searching for Jesus that aren't the leads. Yeah. And then Jesus, we kind of see like this long shot of Jesus walking from the background to kind of meet them. He heals them, but he also starts giving them that speech, like I said earlier, about the father and mother, about under me. He's basically giving like a revolutionary speech to them. Yeah. Kind of like, it's definitely like what Buñuel agrees most with Jesus, this idea of having no father and mother, like abandoning conventions, this kind of thing. But then we see Jesus heal them. It's kind of a very subtle last shot, but we see them healed, but they're still like as Jesus is preaching, they're asking like questions that they're not supposed to be asking if they see, right? They're like, what about the color black? What about like objects? Like, they're. I think he's trying to imply like they're still asking questions as if they're blind in a way, because it's like a very subtle last shot, but we see it pans to their feet, and then all of them are walking. I don't know if you guys remember this. They're all like walking. They're like walking Jesus' disciples with the blind man behind them, and then we see all the disciples. There's like this small path. There's like this small like pivot, like a indent where there's like a little water or something, I think. And so all of them have to take like a big step up across it, and they all take the step really fast. But the two blind men who have just been healed, they have to like stop, like right at the end. And that's kind of how the movie ends, almost like they still can't see in a way, like to walk that way. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure that's what he's trying to see, because it's like it's almost like so subtle, just this ending. It's like so why does it even end like this,
Yes,
But it is kind of amazing because you see all the Jesus and his followers like walking and like they're taking the same steps together and they just walk across it really easily, and then the other two just stop, and that's how the movie ends,
Definitely.
But I want to end with a quote from Oswaldo Caprillo. As I said, he wrote that Milky Way review I was talking about. He says, basically, the scenes with Christ, which are continually interpolated, are clearly meant to demystify the traditional image. And he mentions the three kind of points we see. We see in the first place the image itself, or the beard of no beard. Then the personality of Jesus at Canaan's wedding. And then finally the miracle as seen by the apostles. Dogma as opposed to reality. For the blind men remained blind as before. And that's how he said. That's how he ends it. Like, but yeah. To me, if anything to get out of this movie is like, religion should lead you to more mystery, if anything. At least for Buñuel, not less. Yeah, you guys have any last thoughts?
Can't be sure of anything.
Do you guys like these movies? I don't think Luke liked them as much.
I like the Milky Way a lot to rewatch, honestly.
Okay.
I like them.
And I did like Nazarin, but there's a lot going on in that movie that I was not ready for.
There's like, they're difficult to process on. Yeah, they're difficult to process on first watch.
Okay, yeah.
Especially the Milky Way.
At least you've seen all these later ones, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so at least they'll be a little easier to watch.
Oh no, yeah, like
because these would be harder ones on first. They are harder to watch on first.
The ones that coming up.
I will say these are actually Nazarin is still a lot of fun to me if like once you kind of understand what he's doing. But
yeah,
I will admit the Milky Way is like it's hard. It doesn't have the flow of these later last four we're gonna watch.
Like Phantom Liberty, like the way it just like
each scene.
I think
like,
it's slower.
starts
This
and
one,
ends.
like, there's so many ideas in this.
The
Yeah.
Milky Way has flow if you think of it like just a series of gags, which is how I think of it because it's just funny. But
I can see that.
It just, but to even understand some of the gags,
No, yes.
you kind of have to be.
you have to have background
yes,
knowledge on
some of them, for
theology.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, next week we will be doing. I don't know. Damn, what are we doing next week? We're doing Elle and the Obscure Object of Desire. So we're kind of going backwards and forward, but at the same time.
Buñuel would approve.
Yes. But yeah, until next week, hope to see you floating through the clouds.